Yeah, I hit go live way too soon. Like I'm not waiting 30 seconds to hit the button. I'm just like, what? This is what happens when Peter's not here. Things don't go right. What?
Well, I mean, you certainly don't have the patience that Peter does. But on the flip side of that, you're not going to try to monologue into the show while also giving your Crossroads show an opening monologue in the process. So, like, it's a give and take.
Yeah, and the problem really, like, if I did start monologuing, it would just go for the hour that I can be here for, and then we wouldn't answer any questions in the chat. Zach would fall asleep sitting there. Actually, he did. I hope I'd like make you giggle a couple of times before you fell asleep, and just everyone would just leave. Everyone. But that's not happening. And again, Peter set all of this up. And apparently today's episode is wide receiver 2s who are wide receiver 1s season. I wish
Jordan Addison time.
I wish I, asked him what that meant before we got here, but I didn't. So we're going to ignore that for now and let Peter talk about it. But before, I want to talk to Zach for a second, because I put out a Dynasty Wall Street this week that, again, was a 30-minute monologue because it was me by myself. But I want to talk to Zach because you're the only person that could answer me right away about Puka Nacua. Yeah. Did you listen to that show?
I have not yet. I haven't had a chance yet.
Well, no, just because I wouldn't have to be as specific if you did. So Puka Nacua is doing really well. I mean, that's the short answer of it. Is he is a wide receiver 6 performing as a wide receiver 1, right? Yeah. Like, hold on, let me pull up. In overall points, he's wide receiver 4. In average, he's wide receiver 9. So he's averaging 19.1 points per game in trade addicts leagues, which is mostly straight PPR, so it should be pretty normal for across the board. And my question is, what's he worth trade-wise to you? Okay, actually, I have the trade values of the analyzer picked up, which are probably going to be different in a couple of weeks now that we started the November mock drafts. But Puka Nacua's were 366.31, which is about a mid-24 first.
Yeah. And you probably can't acquire him for that.
Exactly. And he's worth less than Jackson Smith and Jigba in here.
Which he probably won't
Addison, less than Brandon Ayuk. Like, I remember going through the list again. I guess I probably shouldn't be talking about Dynasty Trade Calculator so much on the DLF show, but here we are, and I'm doing it anyway. And they had him listed at around wide receiver 20 in value, and I went through the list. And I had him around like 13-ish.
I was going to say he's probably pushing that top 12. So yeah, that's the thing. And I think this is a great segue, Russ, because this is exactly what Peter meant by wide receiver 1 as a wide receiver 2 season, because this is an archetype that I look for, is the players who can be that top performer. So the Waddle, what we thought Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to be. It's the Jarvis Landry archetype. It's the guy who is not the X receiver, the player who gets slid into the slot an awful lot. So right now, if you're looking down through, you're looking at players like Devontae Smith, players like T. Higgins, players like Jordan Addison, that type of Jalen Waddle, those types of players. And I think Puka Nacua ends up fitting kind of neatly into that group of players, where I still think Cooper Kupp, I think Cooper Kupp's a little nicked up still. I think like he's not as healthy as we want him to be, but I still think he's the one there. But Nacua is the 1B, like fairly solidly, and has produced as the 1, obviously, while Kupp's been out and been underperforming.
Yeah, this past week was the first week where both of them did not have a good score. Like they
Yeah,
the
and
six the
and
first.
that the Stafford.
Yeah, I don't know how quickly man, 2 weeks in a row I didn't watch football. Like just
That's a
life
win.
held down. So I don't know how early into the game Stafford hurt his hand, but I knew like he had a decent amount of attempts.
Yeah,
So like I figured it was at least halftime or so, which should be enough for one of them to get 5 catches. But they both totaled 7, I think it was.
yeah.
So
But that's the thing is like so now you're looking at Puka Nakua in that range of players like Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith and T. Higgins so right in that like you said, right at that kind of turn between 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, like
yeah,
and and I said this back when in week 2 or I think it was week 2 when Puka came out, had a really good week 1, had a decent week 2, and everyone was asking, "What do you do with Puka?" And we said, "I would sell him for a first right now, with the idea that if he is for real, I will go back and pay the iron price to acquire him if he is a player that I want to go
yeah,
get." Because it's worth seeing. Because a player with Puka Nakua's pedigree, with his draft capital, that hits somewhere between 7 and 9% of the time, which is not a great bet. So now that you've seen him hit, the chances of him repeating that are like the chances of a player putting up a top 24 season after they have done it is far greater than if before they have put up a top
yeah.
24 season. So yeah, like he's legit. He's good.
Yeah, and I don't remember who said it. It was either you or it was Addison or one of the 18,000 other people I podcast or record with. That if Puka Nakua's name was Jackson Smith and Jigba, he'd be a top 6 wide receiver in week 2.
Yeah.
And this is Adam Thielen, Doug Baldwin, and of course my short-term memory is terrible. My long-term memory is wonderful. So I'm sure there's many, many more.
Edelman.
These late drafted players or undrafted players that we waited 3-4 years for them to keep doing it before we really boosted them up there. It literally took Adam Thielen almost breaking Calvin Johnson's receiving record for us to realize, like, to boost him in his ADP into his, like, he was a wide receiver 15, scoring as the top 3 wide receiver for 3 years in a row. And they just wouldn't do it, though. He's back up there again.
Even Diggs, it took a long time for people to like believe in Diggs because he was drafted so low.
Like, I wonder why was he drafted so late? Do you like? I didn't
There
pay
was some
attention
off
to the
field.
draft
There
back
was some.
then.
There were some off field, like not like serious off field, but like
one of the. He was a knucklehead.
Yeah. So and I mean, like that was kind of the. But Diggs was, man. I remember Diggs going in like the 4th and 5th round of Dynasty rookie drafts.
Wow, I didn't. Yeah, that was the year before I rookie drafted.
Yeah,
rough. All right, let's get to the comments for now. Benjamin Siegel, good evening, gents. Hey, you guys and the chat gave some advice on where to be patient and where to lower values. Where I was having trouble moving some competing assets on a rebuild a few weeks back. Happy to say the feedback helped, sweet, and got the big one shipped off, heavy PPC and tight end premium. Like, what's a heavy PPC? Like, to me, 0.25 is the normal, and that's way too high.
Yeah.
In the end, sent Jacobs for London. I just love it because, man, Jacobs is not doing great.
Right.
And, he's 25 and on a 1-year deal, and that's just, or no, did he get long-term signed? Or he just pulled a Saquon? I can't remember. Sanders before he got hurt, and DeMarcado for my second plus. Like, oh, so Jacobs for London and Sanders.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, like that's all great moves. Jonnu for a late second. Good for you, man. And package Hopkins and Roshan with Levis to get A-Rich. I love that, even with the injury.
Yeah.
Even with Levis throwing 4 touchdowns, because it's not going to happen again. Even if Levis is the full starter and he's good, that was too good. Just wanted to give a big thank you to you, gents, and to the members of the cast for the great help. Well, I won't take credit for that because I wasn't here for that one, but Peter will be self-deprecating, and Zach will just be like, "Yeah." But
Well,
I'll say thank you. We're awesome.
but Ben, I think that the real point, like those are great moves. The real point though is it's a group effort. Like the fact that we can talk through this and have the chat and spark ideas and kind of help each other out. That's what this all is all about. So I'm glad you made some moves and but really glad that you're back in here tonight because it's always better with the chat.
Oh yeah. Bopons, 1 of 2, 12 team, start 10, super flex. It went out of order and I got confused. I usually say at the end. 12 team, start 10, super flex PPR, tight end premium of 0.5. 6-2 record, traded dimes, your first and a 26th first for Brees Hall, and 6 3 through 5 picks. All right, so none of those really matter. So you traded Danny Dimes and 24 and 26 first for Brees. I mean, since it's a 26, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
QBs are now I want to say Travis Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence, Baker, and Minshew. Main RBs were Najee, Ramondre. Yeah, I mean, that was a much needed upgrade at running back, especially at 6-2. Yeah. I mean, losing Dimes doesn't matter. You're 24. You're going to make the playoffs. It's going to be a later pick. Oh, there's even more. Pick 2 for flex. Najee versus Tennessee or B-Rob versus New England. KJ Osborne versus Atlanta. Not Elijah Moore. Not Hardman. Logan Thomas first. It's one of the Commanders for me.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I don't know specifically how New England's defense plays, but if you got that premium, it's only 0.5. That's not the biggest thing in the world. Yeah, the answer is probably Brian Robinson, but honestly, like, I'm not really the person for start sit, so I'll let you just flip the coin on that or just trust Zach. Also, thoughts regarding league mate. Started 0-4, but determined. Now 4-4. Love it. But best pick is a 25 third. Team is Dak, Bijan, White, Chase, AJ Brown?
Brown, must be.
Okay. Lockett, Kelsey, Pierce, Watson, Love, the quarterback. Reckless? No, that's a really good team. That's not a team that's going to be bad next year. So what's the difference? Like they did a great job of putting a team together.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Dak, who had 2 great games recently, isn't going to not be the quarterback next year. So you're going to have – I still think Love's going to be the quarterback. Like, I don't think they're going to be bad enough to replace him. You know, so I still think they'll have 2 quarterbacks next year. Bijan is Bijan. Like, Rashad White's okay. But then Chase, AJ Brown, Lockett, and then Kelsey, like, that's having no picks in 24, 25 isn't the biggest deal when you have that team. Because at any time where you felt like it, you have many firsts you can get with these players. So
yeah, and that, like, this,
so the answer is reckless but fantastic.
Yeah, and this would be a team where, like, occasionally I would shop Rashad White, Pierce, Watson, just to see what I could, if I could get anything in return, because the real core of that is obviously Dak, Bijan, Chase, AJ Brown, Kelsey. Like, that's your core group. And so it's competitive, but you could also, without too much trouble, flip some of those players and continue to be competitive, but also be looking to the future too.
Yeah, like, honestly, if I'm this guy, and I don't know if this is even hot takey at this point, I would easily downgrade Bijan. Like, there's running backs who are scoring so many points and just are not nearly worth the value of Bijan. And Bijan, they gotta fire Arthur Smith at some point. Like, they gotta do something, because now even the run game isn't working. So, like, they need to do something. So
it's Heineke time, baby.
Honestly, like, he's probably more mobile, so maybe that is better for Bijan anyway. But, like, there's so many places here you can downgrade and still keep your points and get value added, and still having Kelsey, who has like a 6 point per game difference over Andrews, who's number 2, is always helpful. Genji. Which players currently have a 25% plus?
This is a Peter, or Genji knows the answer and he's going to tell us.
But it also doesn't look like they answer, so I don't know. 25% target share, 25% targets per route runs, 30% air yard share, 2.6 plus yards per route run.
It's probably Puka. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, I'm glad I was reading this just to make myself feel better that I think I knew what all these acronyms were. Yeah, absolutely no idea. So I feel like this was a trick question that like they didn't give us the answer to. So we'll move on and hope they come back. Hey guys, in one PPR, need to start 3. Puka, Flowers, Nico, Lockett. Was thinking the first 3, but if Stafford doesn't play, was thinking Lockett over Puka. Ooh, who's their backup?
I don't know yet because they went to try to get the same backup that they had last year, who was in Tampa, and he said, "Thanks, I'm good."
Brett Ripien.
Ooh, yeah, man, I don't know.
Man, I got to be honest, because when it comes to Cooper Kupp, when it comes to Puka, not only are they always, they have the ability to get open, they are schemed open, and they're schemed open close to the line of scrimmage. So, like, you could just be in for an old school Jarvis Landry stat line of like 7 receptions for 36 yards, but you still get 16 points. Like, you still get 10.6 points out of it. I don't, but I like, honestly, I don't hate starting any of these players. Like, this is why I hate depth. I hate making decisions because I would have no idea what to do with this. But like honestly, that's the thing. If you wouldn't feel it, like the answer always comes down to me, what would make me feel the least stupid? And to me saying, all right, I'm going to sit Puka because Stafford's out, I don't think I would feel that dumb if Puka still had a good game, because Brett Ripien is in the NFL. I had no idea he was still in the NFL. So, like, the fact that he might be able to feed Kupp or Puka enough to make me want to start them is just like, oh, okay, that's fine. That happened. I missed on it. Okay. It's like starting a player the first week they come back from a hamstring injury. I usually don't, because it terrifies me. Because A, I've seen too many players be decoys, and B, re-aggravate. So I'm fine like missing out on that, because it's something I know I feel better because I've been burned so many times. So that's the only advice I can give you, because I don't have an answer for this.
I still think I would, Philosaurus, go with the first 3, even though you have the potential to have a boom game for Lockett, and he had 87 and a touchdown last week. Like, I still think that sitting a top 5 wide receiver on the season is really hard for me. Yeah. Like, Puka's been that top 5. Nico Collins and Flowers have been kind of in the mid-tier wide receiver 2. So I think that's what I would do. Although I will tell you, what I often will do is listen to or pay attention to daily fantasy. Yes, also Russ, but daily fantasy, and see if anybody is saying, okay, Tyler Lockett's got a matchup this week, or we're not on Puka because of this, because sometimes you can get those little plugged in pieces from guys who are thinking specifically week in and week out that you don't get from Dynasty guys. So my advice would be Puka, Flowers, Nico, but also pay attention and see if you can get a better feel for things a little closer from guys who actually pay attention to the nitty gritty week in and week out. Sorry.
Spent $12 fab on Khalil Shakir redraft. Thoughts on him? 2 games where he played 60% plus snaps. He's produced 10 plus points. I just listened. I actually had time to sit in a car, so I actually listened to some podcasts, which was something I haven't done in forever. It's all Casey's fault. She had trash sandwiches on, so I started with that and then kept going. Fantastic episode. Well, fantastic show. and then fantastic episode because they're both awesome.
Yeah.
And JJ was actually agreeing with, Khalil Shakir being a great pickup because it seems, especially with Knox out, Kincaid being moved into more tight end-ish routes, it made Shakir get more targets and Gabe Davis sort of edged out a little bit. So it seems like Khalil Shakir might be in for the pass catcher 3 on this one, since Kincaid seems like he's getting pushed up to the 2. So I think, well, first of all, $12, I can't imagine that's much more than 10%, if at all, of your fab. So it's a brilliant pickup because either it's great or it just doesn't matter because it's $12. Also, QJ had life. Yeah, he did have 1 share in Dynasty and 1 in redraft. Holding tight. Please reward me.
I hope so, but it wasn't that pretty. It was okay,
but it wasn't just 9 routes, which was nice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they hit him. It was like back-to-back plays on those little like a bubble screen and like a quick slant, like boom, boom. And I'm like, that is where he actually shines, is yards after the catch. Like those little, like he's really good at that. So.
Yeah, and the thing was, like, Mike Williams wasn't just the deep guy, and it's like Mike Williams went down, and they didn't really place, like, even Josh Palmer wasn't, like, I don't know, like, to me it's weird. Like, I know you don't just replace a player, like that's not really how it works, but like you have someone who could be similar to that player, so you let Josh Palmer just run downfield really fast and do something with it, and then you let Quentin Johnston do some of the intermediate stuff. Like, clearly they're figuring it out because they did it. So you have to hope they keep doing it going forward. I love it. I'm a big QJ guy, so. A2Z. Hi, guys. Hi. Just finished watching Kurt Warner break down Brock's play. Thank goodness for Kurt. People are insanely overreacting, buying a whole bunch of Brock right now. I mean, whatever. Brock's okay. Even if he's not great, he's still just okay. Like,
yeah,
it's a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. Like, there hasn't been a great one since like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones were together, or anyone in Pierre Garçon under Kyle Shanahan. Because apparently Pierre Garçon was just like the best wide receiver for his scheme ever.
But like, I mean, Party's fine. Party's like top 10 on the year. Like, he hasn't been bad. He's got a good team around him. He's got a good system. He's not bad. I'm not worried about the couple of interceptions that he threw this past week. Like, if you read any of, can't remember which PT it was. It might have been Marvin, but I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. But they had done some research into games post clearing the concussion protocol, and that the percentage of interceptions is markedly higher in the game back from a concussion for quarterbacks for the last. I mean, I can't, and I don't remember. I think he went back to 2017. But like,
insanely interesting, and I guess it makes sense with like processing speed and everything.
Yeah. So,
and just straight up like the ability for your brain to move as fast as your eyes do. Like, that's wow.
But an interesting.
It's weird to think that I've never thought of that before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a bruise on your brain, so it would make sense that it takes time to heal. And
I'm guessing that's the supposed answer to the who has all of those plus whatever things, but
that could be a Peter. I mean, Peter loves Kendrick Bourne. Loves him.
Ripien.
Yeah,
I got to sit one because I have Waddle and AJB as well. Okay,
that's
go
fair.
trade 2 of them for 1 better player. And don't have to make yourself decisions.
I like that, though.
I hate decisions. I'm terrible at them. Jason Gray, 12-team Superflex. My team is 4-4. Someone wants my Fields Superflex. Think I can get either Addison plus or DK plus from him. What should I ask for on top of either of those guys? My other QBs are Lamar, Stroud, and Dobbs. So I was someone in the Trade Addicts Discord or the Cool Kids Club. I can't remember what everything melts together. Asked about a trade with these players. I hope I'm not ruining a side of a trade if this is with you. But he asked about the trade of It will okay. They sent Fields, Amari Cooper, Gus Edwards, and Rashid Shaheed, and received DK Metcalf, John Mechie, Calvin Austin, Jordan Mason, is that his name? I don't even know. So it doesn't matter. And a 24 first and second, which are early to mid, but you're also giving them Fields, Cooper, and Gus. So I'm going to call them mid. And I'm like, honestly, that feels light to me. Like for trading away Fields, even like I get it. He had a bad start to the season. He has a bad start to every season. But he was starting to pick it up. He was starting to do better. Like whether he was good or bad in real life doesn't matter. He was doing really good for fantasy. So to me, DK in a first isn't enough for Fields. Also because DK is settling far too easily into being a mid wide receiver 2 at best.
Would you do Addison in a first?
I would want more still.
Then Addison in a first for Fields?
Yeah. I mean, if it's early, that's a different talk. But like, if we're talking Addison and like QB3, wide receiver 2 or 3, running back 2 or 3, I still want more than that for Fields. Because to me, you're gonna plug in Fields and be fine. Like, hold on, let me see if I could find Fields on this list. Justin Fields was, even with the bad start to the season and the game where he got hurt, where he scored 6.5 points, he was averaging over 20 points per game.
Yeah, but a lot of that was like there were 2 games that he was just ridiculous, right?
Yeah, well, they're 2 games in a row, and then he got hurt. So why not believe that could keep going?
And that, like, that's fine. This is not an anti Fields. It's a yeah. If you can get more than that, no. Jason,
you hate Justin Fields. You hate me for backing Justin Fields. Peter's not here, so there's not enough aggression going on. So I need to like step it up a notch.
But like to me, like Jason, if you can get more than a first on top of Addison for Fields, then do it. I still think that if I can get a mid to, like, at this point, you can look at teams and figure out that it's going to be somewhere mid to high or mid to low, depending on, like, if you can get a mid to high first with Addison in a super flex, I think I do that. Do I want more? Yes. But I think that's where, like, if we negotiate, like if I'm trading with me and I send, okay, I'll give you Fields for Addison a first, and what do you want to throw in with it, Russ? Do you want another player, or do we want another pick, like Addison a first and a second? Do you think Addison in 2 first? Like, what do we do?
Addison in 2 first would be too much. I get that. So Addison a first, and I don't, at this point, like especially with your team, I don't want a third quarterback. Addison a first and a mid wide receiver 2, like
Jacoby Myers, Nico, yeah.
Like someone I could plug in and feel good about plugging into my.
And you may be able to get that, something like that done. Where, like, I think it's so funny because people have a hang up on picks. And so you start adding picks to a deal and people are like, but if you add a player that they're not really like thrilled about, they're a lot more willing to part with that. So yeah, like if you can do that, Jason, if you can send Fields and get Addison a mid to high first, and a player in that range back in that Nico Collins ilk, probably Ayuk's a little high for that, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, beginning of the season, he wouldn't have been. Now that it started and he did what he did, yeah, a little too high.
But
yeah, but like I feel like both Addison and DK should be worth more than Fields. No.
No, not in a superplex for sure. And this is, I'm really mad that I haven't been able to do this show because we've had a lot going on. Like I haven't recorded the Dynasty Dummies podcast in 3 or 4 weeks. Like I had the fantasy doesn't equal reality show all lined up and talking about the quarterbacks, the running quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Fields, Richardson, Trey Lance, like that whole, because there are striations to that group. Fields is still a great fantasy quarterback, and if he holds on to an NFL job, which he has so far, and he's shown flashes of being a decent NFL quarterback on top of being a fantastic fantasy quarterback. But you're just kind of betting on whether or not he keeps that job, because if he does, he's fantastic.
Yeah. And I also just think even if the Bears finds a way back into the number 1 overall pick and draft Caleb, they trade away Fields and Fields is going to start somewhere. That's really, like, I believe in Fields enough that I think he's going to start somewhere, in which case he's worth more than those wide receivers. Of course, unless, maybe Jefferson doesn't come back and Addison just crushes it. Maybe Addison pushes himself up there, but I love DK. It's too late for him to push himself that high.
But I think
I'm not pushing Fields that low, I'll say.
I think you've got the Thielen Jefferson with Jefferson Addison, but like 4 years earlier than what you had with Thielen. Like it's
like prime Dylan Figs. Dylan Figs. Nice.
Dylan Figs.
Figs.
Yeah.
Dylan. Oh, why? How is that not a thing? Just they're dealing, man.
I get the team that I called Milk Ovens because of the Mike Evans.
Yep.
So it's gonna be Milk Ovens and Dylan Figs. I like that.
I had a friend growing up that always did that, and it was
Hopkins.
Just so it's DeAndre Hopkins, but I need Pete to fact check me on that. Also, again, man, I just need to listen to JJ more often because that dude's just so smart and just like DeAndre Hopkins had 4 targets, 3 catches, 5 targets, 4 catches, 3 touchdowns, and had a 23% target share, which was his second lowest on the season. So there's a distinct possibility that those are that, yeah. CXK, should I pay a 6-2 record 2024 first? Not theirs. I'm 3-5 and don't have my first. I have another 4-4 first for Higgins. Dynasty 12-team Superflex PPR start 10. Well, the answer is yes. I would pay a late first for T. Higgins very easily.
Yeah.
Also, man, we should just get JJ here right now, because also wonderfully pointed out by JJ is prime healthy T. Higgins has not been on the field with prime healthy Joe Burrow yet this season. T. Higgins was healthy, Joe Burrow wasn't. T missed a game and he's still getting worked back in. Tyler Boyd ran more routes than T. Higgins did last week. 2 days ago, 3 days ago. He's still working his way back in, and Higgins still went like 5 for 60 something. Like he still had a decent game. So I still just do think it's going to get better. And man, well, bias, but also Higgins is just very, very good. Even if he has a bad season, there's a chance he's going to go be the wide receiver 1 on the team somewhere next season. And now I have it stuck in my head. I want it to be Carolina, because I've just started to see the beautiful green Jaguars Calvin Ridley signed jerseys popping up, and I want those two next to each other, the Carolina blue and the Jacksonville green right there. But like honestly, the answer is just yes in general, plus your wide receiver room would be amazing. And and that's how I built my team, so I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it gives you the flexibility of being able to move another 1 or 2 of those guys and upgrade somewhere else, because I think that's undervalued for Higgins.
Yeah, like honestly, the 4-4 first is undervalued for Higgins. Like I know we're getting a lot of good wide receivers supposedly, again, every draft is the greatest draft ever, but like even after Marvin Harrison Jr., there's going to be a lot of very good wide receivers. There's a lot of very big wide receivers. I'm very excited for this draft class. It's going to be rough for me. But like,
I still haven't started really digging into.
oh, I know
this class
nothing
yet.
whatsoever. I just saw someone tweeted out the size of a bunch of wide receivers. I'm just like, the shortest dude on this list is 6'1".
Welcome to prototypical.
Yeah, we're swinging back to the X, baby. So yeah, easy. Like, to me, honestly, easy. If you could send a late first for T. Higgins, even if he just scores as a wide receiver 2, that's a good price for a wide receiver 2. You're welcome.
Yeah, Bo.
A to Z, not sure what to do with Burks in a 10-team Superflex PPR Dynasty. Were there any red flags for you on him? Hold for another year or move on for a bag of chips? You just hold on at this point. Like, what's the harm at holding on at this point? What are you going to do with a couple of thirds? Like,
yeah.
And I'm not going to call anyone injury prone. I'm just not going to do it. The dude has gotten hurt a lot. That doesn't mean it's going to keep happening. There was a certain wide receiver that got traded away so they could draft Treylon Burks that kept getting soft tissue injuries until he went to another team. So maybe there's just something wrong with Tennessee's strength and conditioning team coaches. That's another issue. But Burks is good. So I will hold on to good players and not just sell them for nothing. If you have someone that's willing to give you a first for Burks, go take it. But like a second, 2/3, why? Like, to me, you might as well hold the guy you liked in the first place. Unless you're on the clock during the rookie draft and someone's like, hey, I have this second, give me Burks, and there's someone you like. That's always a different story, but it's November, and that's not now. So I would hold for now.
Well, and we kind of talked about this, too, at the beginning of the year or just after the Scott Fishbowl draft. So it was probably the end of July, early August, when Tennessee signed DeAndre Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, no. And Peter's like, well, good players earn targets. Like, yes, good players earn targets, but there are only about 3 wide receivers in the NFL who are going to earn targets over DeAndre Hopkins. So that's not a great thing for Burks in terms of like target share, and especially on a team that doesn't throw the ball very much.
Yeah, a decent share of a very small pie isn't decent. And then, like,
but he hasn't done anything with it either.
Think big picture.
Yeah.
He has the ability to sit and learn from one of the best wide receivers in the past, like, 10 years. So, like, that's not a bad thing. So it seems if you can get a good price, of course, like Peter always says, it comes down to the trade you're offered. So, like, if someone's willing to give you an actually good price, but like your phrase, a bag of chips, I would not do that. I also have Burrow. Oh man, I get it. Stacking doesn't mean much in Dynasty. It's a GPP thing. It's a tournament thing. Yeah. But it's still, I love it. It's absolutely anecdotal. It is absolutely personal. I love it. It's fun. Like, I love those double points, but of course it always comes down to, all right, what happens if they both have shitty games? You're just kind of screwed.
Right. Yeah, it's a embrace the variance. It's a differentiate yourself from a big field. Like, it could be good in a week, but like your advantage, it's literally percentage points. I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like 2%. It was either 2 or 4%. Like, that's the advantage you're gaining, and it's fine.
Again, but also it helps that it's Burrow and a very good wide receiver. Like, so
good, have good players.
Yeah, good players help you score points, right? Josh M. Weird Symbol. Hey guys, hey. In a Superflex 12-team PPR league, and someone offered me Lawrence for Dak, Laporta, and a second. I'm a contending team, so it'd be late. I also already have Mahomes, and I'm light at tight ends besides Laporta. I don't do this. I love Trevor Lawrence, but he's not scoring like a.
I was saying, what's the gap between Dak and Lawrence?
Let me pull this up because it's not much anymore. Um, Again, Trade Addicts gives a little more points for yardage than most leagues do, but as of right now, I already forgot who I'm looking up.
Trevor Lawrence.
Lawrence
Dak.
is at 18 points per game, like 18.0, and Dak is 19.
Yeah.
So after the past 3 games, Dak is ahead of Lawrence. And I get it, you get that much younger, but like you said, you're competing. And I mean, I've talked to people that have Laporta as their tight end 1. They're ageists. That's really what that comes down to, because the answer should always just
Travis
be
Kelce.
Kelce is your tight end, is the tight end 1 until he decides not to be anymore.
Yeah. And I still think Andrews is the 2. And you would have a hard time pulling me off. I still like George Kittle. I know that's
he's almost even with Laporta with me at this point.
And that's fair.
Because Kittle has the ability to be a monster, but I don't know if it's the offense, if it's him, but he's literally just like, I remember Tyreek Hill's rookie year. I called him the Dynasty Prairie Dog because he literally went up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Like he kept just poking out, coming back down. 20 points, 2 points, 20 points, 2 points. And that's what Kittle's doing to us. Yeah. And it's a little more worrying where one of his up games is 3 catches and the 3 catches just happen to all be for touchdowns. Like that's not going to happen very often. But then again, he could have like 2 games ago where he got like 10 receptions. Like it's, but I'm not going to argue because I know how good he is.
Like, but like that's the guys that I want are Kelce, Andrews, Laporta, Kittle, and I think that Hawkinson is kind of in that conversation, but not quite. He's like but although he's producing this year fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he's tight end 2, but
yeah. So like, honestly, I hold because it's better for your team in general. Like if you were rebuilding, I would probably say yes to this because you want to rebuild more around Trevor Lawrence than Laporta. But there's no reason to do this, even though the value of the trade probably isn't that bad, but it still doesn't help your team right now.
Yeah.
Will Levis thoughts. Gotta say, Josh Fresh, I guess I should say the name. Will Levis thoughts. Gotta say, I was not in on this guy, but wasn't in position to draft him either. He never made it to round 2 in my drafts. I drafted 1 Will Levis just to say I drafted a Will Levis. I still have it. Okay. He's not going to throw 4 touchdowns every game. He's like, no. It was always the ability, or it was always a possibility that he would be pretty good for fantasy. Because the dude can be facing backwards and still throw the ball 60 yards on his knees. Like, I will forever be a fan of him for the combine.
Yeah.
Bryce Young and CJ Stroud aren't throwing. Why are you doing throwing drills? Well, I got a cannon. Like, straight confidence. He's like, why wouldn't I? I can throw the ball really, really far. It's going to be good for me.
So, Jazz, I actually have my pre-draft Will Levis film notes. If you want to hear them.
Yes.
Josh Allen. There, we got that out of the way. Now we can talk about Will Levis. I think that's a lazy link between Levis and surefire stardom, that arm strength. Levis's large caliber right arm is capable of making nearly any throw he's asked to. He doesn't even need much time to load up. Levis seems to be able to simply flip the ball 40 or 50 yards downfield. We saw that this past week. Mm-hmm. When Levis has a clean pocket, he will actually cycle through a progression and find the open receiver. And he is surprisingly accurate on short throws and screens as long as he's not asked to move around too much in the pocket. The problem with Will Levis is that although he's billed as a dual threat quarterback, his effectiveness as a runner is questionable. Although he's very physical and will run for positive yards, Levis does not have the vision required to gain chunk yards. And even Levis's greatest asset gets him into trouble. Most of his bad decisions under pressure stem from the fact that he has such a big arm. Levis will throw the ball up for grabs rather than throw the ball away. And he also struggles with accuracy when moving the pocket. This is especially evident when Levis slides to his right, where he tends to drop his shoulder, throw off his back foot, and that leaves the ball sailing high. Levis has, at the very least, a skill set that should make him a starting NFL quarterback for the next few years. That has value in Superflex leagues. Unfortunately, his overall ceiling feels capped, so I don't think he ever has the potential to realize a top 3 or 4 quarterback finish. So, I mean, like Levis, the people who loved Levis coming out, I think it was hyperbolic. The people who hated Levis coming out, I think that was hyperbolic. I think the real Will Levis is he's a pretty good quarterback who makes some dumb throws down the field.
Yeah, and the good thing for Will Levis is if you have to be a player who will chuck the ball into traffic instead of throwing it away, you might as well have that ball go to DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
So, like, again, clearly I got a lot of questions about what to do with Will Levis and all of this. And honestly, it's just like, if you're going to sell now, actually, like the specific question was Will Levis for what should I sell Will Levis for late first? Why? You just used one. It's not like you don't know what you're re-rolling into yet. You might as well see if he can raise his value, because let's be honest, he did this already. It's going to take a decent amount for his value to drop below a first now. Like he will need to straight up Nathan Peterman it right now and throw 4 interceptions the next game for it to tank back to like the healthy scratches that he got at the beginning of the season. So like I think he's a little insulated enough to wait and see what's going to happen for a little bit. Plus, let's go back to Lamar Jackson's rookie year when he took over for Joe Flacco. This isn't necessarily a Will Levis offense.
Yeah.
So we don't even know if this is real Will Levis anyway. So if you believed and you had him, hold. If you don't believe and you have him, if you can get more than a late first, then fine. It's not going to be bad anyway, you know, that price, even if he does keep playing. So like, I don't think you need to overthink it, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And like Will Levis is the quarterback that we're always hoping that somebody like Mike Williams or, you know, the downfield guy that needs a DGAF quarterback. Will Levis is, I think his middle name is DGAF.
Yeah. Now we just need him to
it's
start
a family name
on the field or something. Yeah. Like get those Jay Cutler memes reimagined. Josh M, so hard to gauge Laporta's value on any trade analyzer because it's so far from the other top tight ends still. It's not even about analyzers. It's anywhere, everywhere, because we're not used to this. Like, he's doing too well.
So,
like remember Kyle Pitts' rookie year where he was valued up here? He caught for over 1,000 yards and his value still tanked. But like Laporta, who was here for most people, I know Zach and I were more here than that, but like he was here, so it's easier for it to go up because there was no expectation for him to do this. So it is absolutely league to league what his value is going to be, and it depends on the manager who's holding him.
It's so funny for me because I was so high on Laporta.
Thanks for that, by the way.
See him, like he's done like head and shoulders above anything that I expected him to do this season. Like I watched Laporta, and watching him, I was like, he is as close to what we saw with, like, he's a Mark Andrews type player, a Kittle type player. Like that's the talent level. But even those guys took some time to develop. And here's Laporta coming out of the gate. They're just like, yeah, you know what? We got rid of Hawkinson. Why don't you slide in with Jared Goff and just, light it up?
It's not Mark Andrews' fault that they drafted the
Hurst.
stellar tight end before him and that Max Williams was still on the team. And the dude has multiple X's in his first name that he's just going to get more targets. It's just the way it is.
I got a tweet when Hurst was drafted that was it was nice to draft Hayden Hurst's replacement
in the same draft.
Yeah, in the same draft, because Hayden Hurst is an aging tight end. So I'll find it. I'll effort that while we keep working. But
Jason, thanks, fellas. Incredible advice regarding my Fields question. Well, it's just incredible advice regardless. It doesn't have to be specifically your field. Like, we're crushing it. So thanks.
You are. I'm just the pretty face over here.
I'm rambling until you say smart things, so we do well. Those who are contenders. Would you rather have Kelsey or Laporta? Oh, Kelsey. I mean, that's not a question to me. I don't care about the surging value of a rookie tight end. If you can give me, okay, so TradeX leagues are 0.75 premium, so it's more than most, because most premiums are still 0.5 points per game. Kelsey is at 25.2. He went down a little bit. TJ Hawkinson is 19.56. Mark Andrews 18.8, and Sam Laporta at 17. This is an 18.8 point game per difference.
And in straight premium, no, straight PPR, no premium. Kelsey is averaging 20.8, and Laporta is averaging 13. So it's almost 8 points. It's 7.8 points. Like,
so
you want Kelsey.
Seems silly.
Like, Laporta is the great pivot if you can't get Kelsey, because he gives you some production or good production, but also gives you the longevity you hope. But man, I don't like Kelsey hasn't slowed down.
Nope.
Tight ends are, and this is the same thing that we'll talk about with any position. It's not, there's not an age curve. Like, that's a fallacy. Like, people think it's a cliff, and they're either producing or they're not. And very few players gradually, gracefully age. Usually it is an injury or just a decline in skill, and that's it. Yeah. So to me, Jazz, it's Kelsey.
Without even thinking.
Yeah.
Just go pay half the price for Evan Engram, who's scoring exactly the same as Laporta.
So
except he has a bye this week, which is
my tweet was during the draft in 2018. I kind of like the Ravens taking Mark Andrews to replace their aging veteran tight end Hayden Hurst.
Yep. And I have Bryce Young, Kobe Lenz in Carolina. There you go. You move stack to stack even when the wide receiver moves. There you go. Perfect. I'm going to keep saying it. It's really funny. Before last season on the Trade Addicts, I had Brandon Marianne Lee on, who was just fucking wonderful in general. Yeah. But we kept saying Russell Wilson's the Broncos. We're going to speak it into existence. Russell Wilson's the Broncos. And then it happened. T. Higgins to the Panthers. T. Higgins to the Panthers. I'm going to speak it into existence. T. Higgins to the Panthers. Plus T. Higgins with Adam Thielen. And Hurst was on the Bengals, so he's friends with T. Higgins, I'm sure, because they're on the same team. So of course they're friends. That's how that works, right? Like, it makes too much sense not to happen. Let's just speak it into existence. Breezy. Oh man, I can't stop staring at his little picture thing. As a contender whose running back room looks like Kenneth Walker, Brees, Gibson, and A.J. Dillon, would it make sense to trade Diggs? No. Away for Ridley / Javonte Williams, 10-0.5 PPR start 10? No. Because you're fine, more than fine, with Williams and Brees.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. Again, this is also very different. If you have to start 2 wide receivers, yeah, you're a little screwed in case of bye weeks, which I think the Seahawks had theirs already. I'm not completely sure. But like, yeah, but why worry about those 1 weeks, one position, one player in 1 week? And I love Ridley, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't done week 1 since week 1. So I would not. You're overthinking it, though. Sorry.
Seahawks had bye in week 5.
Yeah, and I think the Jets just had theirs, so you're fine. Like, it's really funny. I had someone in my DMs asking about going and trading for a quarterback. And I'm like, oh, well, if you don't have a quarterback, that's fine. I would rather do this instead. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, I still have Tua, but I'm worried he's going to get hurt. I'm like, why are you worrying about something that hasn't happened and probably won't happen? Like, what does that get you? And that's what you're doing right here. You're worrying about something that there's nothing to worry about right now, because with everything considered, you could start your 2 stud running backs for the rest of the season and be absolutely fine.
The psychology of Dynasty or fantasy football in general is fascinating. Like the fact that we worry about this, the fact that we worry about injury prone, the fact that we get mad at Mark Andrews last year because he was hurt and didn't produce like we expected, like things like that. Like it's so funny to me. We're worrying about injuries where you've got 2 stud running backs and worried about what happens if I have to replace one of them. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no. So don't you're overthinking it. Don't do that, especially at the cost of someone like Diggs, who's just so darn good. Like, I wouldn't.
If it was somebody not Ridley, like if you're trading Diggs to get into like an Addison, the Addison plus the Addison plus Williams, like then maybe, because I think you don't lose as much production, but you also are gaining value going forward. But it's not a move that you need to make right now.
No.
It just isn't.
Like, don't get me wrong. If your wide receivers were weak and you were going to trade Walker for Ridley and Williams, I would love it. But it's the fact that you're losing out on Diggs for that move that
wide receiver too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's if we were redrafting rookie drafts, who's the 109 and why is it Pop Douglas?
Genji, I love this. So I will fully own up to I undersold him, but like Russ, you can attest to this. He's on a lot of my teams. Like I have Demario Douglas on my teams because I'm a Pats fan, and he was
Free.
He was free, and he's a Patriots slot receiver, which I'm a sucker for a slot receiver anyway. So like he's been good. They used him at all 3 levels of the field last week, which was a little different.
Which I like.
I mean, like we're cautiously optimistic about Pop Douglas, but like he's still probably like the 111. No, I'm just kidding.
Not even the 110. That's ballsy.
Yeah.
Hey, Puff Pass Kiss. His name is Billy Jeans, not Will Levis.
I did that one.
Hey, Grant. In a 12-team Superflex contender, I want to get a pick that will be the 24, 102, or 103 for Marvin Harrison Jr. It probably needs to be the 2. My wide receivers are Lamb. You think so?
Maybe. I mean, it depends on where May and Williams go.
To me, I think we're just hyping up Harrison Jr. too much at this point that he's going to be the 102.
Then I want the 103.
I want the 103 so I can take Brock Powers. I almost said Powers because it sounds cooler. Lamb, Ayuk, St. Brown, Godwin, Shaheed, and Downs. What a fantastic wide receiver room. Start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Package a 2 or 3 for the first.
Package 2 or 3.
Get rid of the package 2 or 3 for the first. No, because you're gonna give them really good wide receivers and it's gonna make the pick worse. If you want to do it after the season, that's different. After the season, I would package anyone from Godwin down to do it. But doing that now is probably not the right move because I'm also the kind of a-hole that if I trade away my first, I'm going to make it as worse as possible for the person. Or if a person won't trade me my first back, I'm making the goddamn playoffs. So, and especially if you're going to give them any of these players, it's going to make their team better.
I hate my teams that I don't have a first.
I'm used to it.
Like, well, I am too, but like I hate it. Like
Look,
in
me up in
Olympians,
TA11,
in
and we
Olympians, I didn't have a first, and I was mad. And I finally, I got the trade. I got a trade offer of 2 firsts for Tua, and I was like, no, 3. And he was like, I need a starting quarterback now. Okay. And I was like, it's still probably undersold, but like,
it was very shocking to see Tua move in
yeah,
general. But yeah, you got enough for it.
I think so.
Yeah, like that's the real danger in this. Do you have wide receivers in here that could make that trade possible? Absolutely. But if they're willing to do Godwin, Higgins, and Downs, which feels light anyway for the 103, it's going to push it to the 104 because they have 3 starting wide receivers now.
Right.
Like that's what you need
But
to worry about. That's
but
what
if
you need to be
you
careful about.
if you get to the end of this season, it's probably going to take more than what Grant wants to pay. Like, and
Yes.
I know you took Ayuk out of this equation. Like Ayuk is in that equation for me. Like I would trade
No, yes.
Ayuk. Like
No, yes, absolutely. Yes.
it's Lamb and St. Brown are the players that I am really like. If I'm gonna, I'm those are not players that I'm moving for that first.
Correct. Because
Because
they're
you're
worth
hoping Marvin Harrison Jr. is
either of those.
Lamb and St. Brown.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And honestly, I really legitimately did that because of his name, where his name is in the
Yeah,
list.
no, I get you.
It made my life easier not to have to skip names, and that's literally why I did that. Hold on, you start reading that because I have to draft and I have to find someone to pick.
All right. 2 late 25 firsts for a late 26 first and Higgins. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Damn it, that was too easy.
Well, I mean that was you get a first back and Higgins, so you're basically paying a late first for T. Higgins. I'll take that, Marvin.
Yeah, even like it's like we're talking. It's weird that we're talking 25 and 26 picks, by the way. But yeah, you're getting a first back, no less. At that point, a year doesn't matter. It's fine. Man, should I take the risk that either Kyler comes back or Clayton Tune is bad enough that he's just going to pepper the low A dot targets to Rondell?
No, I don't think Rondell's gonna. I'm sad about Rondell.
There is, yeah, for sure, but there's like no one left to take. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell has 7.6 points the past 2 games. Has DJ Chark caught the ball at all? Nope.
Do. Thinking Godwin and Higgins for the Marvin Harrison Jr. pick, and maybe throwing a late second or Shaheed. Giving up too much for either Marvin Harrison Jr. or the rookie QB2. Probably,
No.
but you're going to have to. Like that's
at the end of the season, that pick will have gained value. And the only way Higgins gains value is if either A, he somehow gets re-signed very quickly, or he gets moved. And that'll be depending on where he goes. So Higgins has his value is going to be very volatile, but regardless, the QB2 or Harrison Jr. will be worth more than Higgins and Godwin. So if you can do that,
yeah,
especially again after the season, if you could pull that off, that would be fantastic. But right now, it worries me that you're giving them too many points.
Well, and also thinking that is going to be the second or third pick. Like you can kind of say that it's going to be early, but there's still a lot of season left.
Yes.
Like by my count, we're about halfway through.
And especially if there's no trade deadline and all of that, like in your leagues and all of that, like there's still so much that can happen.
Yeah.
That I don't think you rush it. I think you take your time. Don't do this now. But if it's later in the season and let's again, we keep saying end of season, the real answer is when the draft picks are set. Yeah. Like the team's not making the playoffs. If the fantasy playoffs hit and you don't have a trade deadline and you don't care about your playoffs, then you can easily do this trade and you'll be fine. So Yeah. Got offered Devonta Smith and DK for Puka and a first. Thoughts? I take Devonta and DK. Like if you're
Yeah.
again, like I need to know more about this first. How many teams? Is it super flex? Is it early? Like this would need to be an early super flex first for me to say easily the Puka side.
Right.
Because I understand that Devonta isn't having a last season, but that offense is still very good. Devonta is still very good. And of course, I haven't mentioned JJ in a little bit, but last year and so far this year, DK is just really underperforming in touchdowns. And that's what's keeping his production so low. And sooner or later, you want it to go back to the mean, which hopefully isn't super underperforming in touchdowns for a gigantic fast man. So I think you're good with Smith and DK.
Yeah. So the way my brain handles this one is Devontae Smith and Puka are about even. DK is worth more than a random first.
Love it. Yeah, exactly.
Russ,
like, do we end now?
is that's the end. Well, this is early.
This is weird. All right, so what else should we talk about? Okay. Sam Howell. I want to talk about Sam Howell. I'm just going to completely ruin Dynasty Wall Street for whoever hasn't listened to it yet.
I'll still listen to it. I'm excited about hearing you, but
so Sam Howell is I liked him. He was my favorite quarterback coming in. Clearly, you knew he wasn't going to be the highest drafted, but also, but he got drafted in like the 5th or something.
he's
like
still
that.
the best quarterback in that class.
Exactly.
Like I said he was.
And I was thrilled to hear you say that because I kind of felt that way. Man, when you lose De'Ami Brown, of course, you're going to have a bad year. Just saying.
Yeah.
I love De'Ami Brown. I struggle with his value at this point because he's a top 10 producing quarterback right now.
Yeah.
And his value in Dynasty Trade Calculator is a mid first. I think at this point it would be silly to trade him away for less than that. And the only reason you trade him away for a mid first is if you don't believe that he can keep producing. Because again, he doesn't need to be good. He just needs to keep his job. And that's really the question. And especially with Washington being at pick like 11 or 12 at the moment, you're usually outside of a quarterback you feel great starting right away at that point. So, and especially like I'm crossing my freaking fingers. Rivera walks away and Bieniemy gets the head coaching job because it's about damn time Bieniemy gets a head coaching job. And since he's there, it's great for continuity for the team and for Sam Howell. So, like, I'm curious what you think about the value of Sam Howell, and if you think that he is, if we're seeing enough that he stays a long-term starter, and the fact that will he stay alive long enough to be a long-term starter is really the biggest question to me.
And so it's funny because Howell is I have him rostered in several places. One team that I'm actively in super tank mode that I probably should trade him, and in fact maybe I'll see if I can get a mid first for him. But he's that player that you and most people don't play super flex quarterbacks like I do, but like I have a lot of teams where I'm rostering Sam Howell. I have a lot of teams where I'm rostering. The next question is about Aiden O'Connell, and I have Clayton Tune, and I have PJ Walker, and I have those quarterbacks who Minshew, the quarterbacks who can all of a sudden come into work. And depending on my team, if I need points, I'll use them. But if I don't, if I'm in a point where either I'm tanking or I have a team that's good enough that I'm not using those players, I'm absolutely trading Sam Howell. I'm absolutely trading Gardner Minshew, like those players. And it's obviously Howell's a little bit in a different sphere than Minshew, but I don't expect Sam Howell to maintain the level he has for a long period of time because he takes so many sacks.
Yeah.
And sacks are a quarterback stat. Like I know that's hard to like fathom because we've always been told, oh, it's a bad offensive line. It's a quarterback holding the ball too long.
I'll put like 70% with you on that.
Have you gone through and looked at
No.
Travis May? Okay, so Travis May did a whole like a great big stuff, and it's painfully obvious how much of this is on Howell.
Okay, okay, well, Howell specifically, I have absolutely no idea. But also, I will say, I will split that 30% between the quarterback's fault and the offensive coordinator's fault, because we have absolutely seen teams with bad offensive lines that their offensive coordinator doesn't realize, shit, we should be just running some slants and some bubble screens. And they still run these plays that take like 4 seconds to develop. And it's just like, what, like, give the dude a chance to not die.
Yeah.
And again, I don't watch any of this close enough to know what's going on. And I will absolutely trust Travis. He is a very smart and very nice dude. So like, yeah, that's fine. But like, man, I hope he being Sam Howell gets his shit together a little bit more to keep playing, because I do like him. And that team has, well, they lost the defensive bones to be good, but you know, they have such good bones on offense that like, good, keep it going. Stephen White, what are we throwing out to try to get O'Connell? I mean, Superflex. The thing is, I doubt anyone is giving him away for a third. Would you send a second for? The only reason I would go trade for Aiden O'Connell is because my good buddy's name is Tim O'Connell. His son is Aiden O'Connell. Literally the only reason I would make that trade. Look, he looked okay every time he's been on the field, but it's still a bad team with an interim head coach, which I'm a little surprised they pulled the trigger on getting rid of him that quickly. Hey, Peter's back. But yeah, like if you like have 0 quarterbacks to start, I don't know if O'Connell's the first place I'm going, but if you can get him for a third. Oh, here we go. Second round pick was instant denied, which means that person's not trading them away and just move on.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, there are going to be other
exactly. Yeah. They did you a favor. That's too much. Like here, yeah, I'd rather go after Minshew and Dobbs. Exactly. Like that's what it is. Like I would pay more for those 2 quarterbacks than I would pay a second for Dobbs. I turned down sending a second for Minshew just because of his ability to use the terrible phrase "turn back into a pumpkin." Like he absolutely has the ability to just be so bad sometimes that I'm not going to do that. But if you can get a 2/3 for Minshew, a second for Dobbs, because let's face it, Dobbs isn't going to be their starter next year. He might have a chance to start somewhere next year if he does well enough, but he'll get you a lot of points this year, and that's worth a second to me. I know it is to you because you don't even like seconds.
Nah.
There you go. Stephen White agrees even before we said it. Josh Downs, 2 or 3 first-round picks.
Is this a question? Or is this how much is Josh Downs worth? If you're trading him to Peter, at least 3.
If you're trading him to me, 4 minimum.
Ooh.
See, like, that's why Sam Howell was so good. He had De'Ami Brown and Josh Downs to throw the ball.
I like that he came in on the DLF Facebook, his own DLF YouTube, and then the Twitch.
Well, it does that whenever when you're the host. It says all down there. If you don't change it, it posts it to all of them.
It's pretty sweet.
I need the 2024 102 or it's Downs. Marvin Harrison Jr. is it. That's the line. You have like Chase, Jefferson, maybe AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., Josh Downs.
Hey, there he is.
Hey,
Pete, you got here just in time for the end of the show.
And
that was my plan. I was like, I'll come in, take the credit for doing the show, and I'll be good.
Yeah, that's really all it comes down to. But I love you all, but I need to go. I really just can't stand looking at Peter's face for more than the 3 seconds I have already. So, gotta go.
Yeah.
Good night, Russ.
Seriously,
thanks. It was nice to see you.
Talk to everybody later.
Hey Zach, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
How'd the show go?
Yeah, good. Genji has a question for you though. Which players currently have a 25% plus target share, 25% targets per route run, 30% plus air yard share, 2.6 plus yards per route run, 15 plus ADOT, and 15 plus yards per reception?
It depends which source you use, and I'm guessing because those numbers vary a little bit between sources, but I can look.
Like, yeah, I mean, that was
Unless the answer is Josh Downs, I don't really care. What was it?
Huh? It was up like fifth or sixth from the top.
Oh, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. All right, you can answer this. Not that you don't know, since it's a leading question, but like it's all pinned. Where are we at?
What's Justin Jefferson's rest of the season look like with Dobbs? I mean, not as
The
good
volume's
as it
going
does.
to be. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, not as good as it does with Cousins, but he's still going to be. It's the same kind of percentage of a smaller pie, I would think. What do you think, Peter?
I think the volume is going to be hard to keep up. Cousins has an amazing volume limit, partly because he's got such a good wide receiver core, but also because he can actually utilize it.
Yep.
He looks on track to come back sooner rather than later, I think the quote was. Which is positive. And I think if they bring him back relatively early, it's a positive sign. They expect to be able to utilize him pretty well. It looks worse, but he's still Justin Jefferson, so I'm still not going to keep top 12 outside of his range of outcomes on a weekly basis, put it that way.
Yeah. Although, I mean, like, Dobbs has thrown the ball an awful lot. I know it's in Arizona and they've had negative game scripts.
Sorry. Yeah, that news happened after I ran my process over it, which wasn't tilting at all because, I produce a lot in a single 12-hour span, only then to find out that, fuck. Everything's changed because Josh Dobbs is going, and Dobbs is a better replacement than I was expecting, so that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's not Kirk Cousins level. I still think the volume, like everything I said, is the same, but I mean, we can expect decent, and that, like you said, it helps out Justin Jefferson maintaining that. So I don't see here going to be Travis Kelce.
No, I don't think so. Genji seemed to think it was DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't know if that's leading
the run on this list, as if
that's leading the witness, but
maybe.
But yeah, so Cousins has already thrown 50 more times than Dobbs this year, and Dobbs has been in a lot more negative game script than Cousins. So, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it or use counting stats, but like it's pretty obvious that Cousins is, a higher volume thrower than Dobbs.
Yeah, and also you got to assume a little better. Just because he's been so consistent for so long. But again, like you have a very fine point that Josh Dobbs has been doing a decent job in Arizona, good enough that he should be the Minshew level of when he's the backup. You can still expect the team to stay on track, if you know what I mean.
And Justin Jefferson is pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard someone say that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Why are you even filtering in ADOT here? There's got to be a shorter list to get to whatever play you want
here. 12 teams Superflex, start 9. PPR contender, send Hurts, Pittman, Kelce for Jefferson, Levis, Laporta, and a late 24 first. I am worried, Jazz, that hurts your bid for contending if you're the contender. Like, I like the idea of getting Jefferson, but Hurts to Levis to me is a bigger drop than the gain you get going from Pittman to Jefferson. And I think Kelsey is still head and shoulders above Laporta. Like I like the idea that you're thinking long-term for that, but I still think it's the Hurts, Pittman, Kelsey side, especially for a contender.
The list I get if I stop at 15 yards per reception, which, by the way, is a giant stat, is actually a little bigger than that. It's Travis Kelsey actually fits on this list of 30% targets per route run and the Whopper share, and also the yards per route run being over 2.6. So it's Travis Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson in his small game sample, Puka Nacua, and Brandon Ayuk. Hopkins didn't really even filter in here for me, but I don't know why. Which one was it?
I said Puka Nacua, so I'm
again,
right.
the numbers are going to vary. The numbers vary a little bit by source, especially when you're talking about targets per route run, because what you consider a route share and which source is counting which routes. If it's Hopkins, yeah, he's got 2.6 yards per route run, 30% targets per route run. It must have been the Whopper letting him down, because I might do it a little bit differently versus a per game source. I have his target share at 27%. That's rounded though. And his Whopper at 69.2. So yeah, he should have filled it in as well. Sorry, what was Jazz Fresh's thing? I'm all over the place. Like I just got home. I haven't even drank coffee yet, so.
She was down a little bit below that. 12-team Superflex, start 9, PPR contender. Send Hurts, Pittman, Kelsey for Jefferson, Levis, Laporta, and a 24 first, late 24 first. The next one
Tim,
down.
Sorry, because I don't know I did an actual answer for this one. Justin Jefferson will be back in the top 12 in my projections the minute he's scheduled to be healthy and back on the field. That's where we'll start. And I think that could be very reasonable with what we said about Dobbs. Yeah, I think Dobbs is going to be fine. I think that's positive. There's a whole new system to learn. Jefferson's just getting back to health, but I'm not going to take the under, especially in a dynasty league. In general, Jefferson's probably not the target for a contending team just because his value is still so immense and there are cheaper points this year in general. But like, just assessing the player, like I always have. I always think that for Justin Jefferson. 12-team Superflex, start 9, PPR contender. Send Hurts, Pittman. I hate sending Hurts. Kelsey on a contender for Jefferson, Levis, Laporta. And this is a non-contender trade, though. Like you're looking at value, surely, when you trade. You're upgrading Pittman here using Hurts. And I guess side trading Kelsey into Laporta. I think your winning chances go down, and that's what's most important to me. So I would keep Hurts, Pittman, and Kelsey, as painful as it is. But if contender means top 6, well, what did you say? It's a 12-team league? Yeah. Top 6 rather than top 3? Sure. Because I consider myself in that 70%. I'd rather have Laporta and Jefferson in Dynasty. Hurts is a tough one to use in Superflex, so, you're paying the iron price. I think it's just a Hurts, Pittman, Kelsey side in a vacuum. But if you just want to get Jefferson, I wouldn't hate you for it. Where did you come down on that, Zach? That's a very.
I still think I want the Hurts, Pittman, Kelsey side, especially if I'm a contender, because I just think there's so much more. Like Hurts gives you such a big advantage over Levis. Kelsey gives you such a big advantage over Laporta. The Pittman to Jefferson, like, yes, you would rather have Jefferson, but Pittman's been really good. Like, he's been fine. You obviously you don't have the value piece of it,
and
because Jefferson
0 for me. That might be
like Jefferson and Laporta are still like ascending assets. The 24 first is whatever, it's late. So I would rather have the Hurts, Pittman, Kelsey side.
Like, even on a building team, I would need something more than Levis to pull the trigger, because Levis is just a 0 for me. And I'm trading Hurts, so it's probably pretty even. But yeah, I think the Hurts side just wins mostly. Also high. Anthony Platt, team not in contention in Dynasty. I feel you, Anthony. This is when we work. I was thinking about this all the way home. It's like, this is the area of the season where the subscriptions drop off, the viewers drop off. And that's why people stay in a constant build, because if you're in that situation, now's when you should be the most active. You've got contending teams that are interested in doing things, and you can change your stars, as it were, now. Whereas when you get to the off season and no one's really got an immediate demand, you're like, why will no one trade with me? It's because you wasted this window. But sorry, Anthony, what were you saying here? Move Godwin or Cooper for a late first. And I think even on contenders, on pure builders, like that's all you've got on your roster. Sure, I guess you've just got to move. And so getting a first for both, one each, not one for both. Maybe. Because you're just looking to get that risk of injury off your roster, if nothing else. But I was talking about this in my column this week, the pot that's not out of date because of the trade. Marcus Brown, Tyler Lockett. Marcus Brown is Tyler Lockett this year, and I think Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin, or especially Amari Cooper, is like the Adam Thielen lesson from this season. Like, that's in their range of outcomes, and so they're going to have another season like that. And now's the time you should be really interested in that. Now, on a builder, again, where you're not in contention, it might be up for consideration, but this is too low in general. So unless you have nothing else to try to work with, then I'd probably just keep the players and hope for one of those windows in the season when they're back to when scoring their full potential of points, because their volume's still there. Godwin's got no quarterback. Cooper's got whatever the hell that is. And the return or whatever the hell that is, quarterback. So I think there are better times ahead, certainly to trade them. Even I'm not concerned that there'll be another good window to trade them. But again, if you're a pure rebuilding, that's all just pie in the sky theory. And I think trading for something that's solid and you can trade more easily the more time that goes on makes some sort of sense. And so there's an extremity of situation that might, encourage me into just trading for a straight first, but it is too low, in my opinion. Aaron Jones price check. He seems like perpetually worth between a second round pick and a first round pick, but also neither. It's why he's always a good trade candidate, especially for rosters that think they're competing. I trade him for him a lot this offseason, and now those teams don't turn out to be so competitive, and I'm looking to trade him away. Basically, what you have to do is if you're trying to trade him away, is go to a competitive team or wait. If you're in a league like me, Aaron Jones is going to score points pretty soon. Let me say that to start with. Like, his projection's particularly high this week. His snaps have gone up each of the last 2 weeks. We know Aaron Jones and Green Bay have this history of him being underutilized but highly talented, and he's working back from a hamstring injury. He's going to go off. He's going to go off in the next few weeks, I think. Again, like he did in the first few weeks here. So that's coming, and that's what I'd have in my head. Now, if you're in a league where the top contending teams are well aware that Aaron Jones is capable of putting up 20 points every week, and it's probably coming soon, then you can probably approach them and offer Aaron Jones and something to get a first. But it's difficult to do, and only if you're a non-contender would you be interested in doing that. If you're a contending team looking to acquire Aaron Jones, which is the situation you should be in to acquire Aaron Jones, you try and essentially do the reverse. You go look at the team they're on. Hopefully they're not a contender. You try and trade them, I don't know, a second or just straight up Rashid Shaheed, or just Rashid Shaheed in a second if I really need to do that to get it done. It's not because I hate Rashid Shaheed. It's just because he's that type of player I don't think is going to have consistent great volume, but is young and talented and can go off for a week like last week. And you're giving them that second to make them feel pretty awesome that they're building and going. And they are, to be fair, they're going in the right direction. That's a good trade. And that's why I'm offering it. And then you get, a running back with that top 12 in his range of outcomes to start next week or the week after, or whenever you feel the timing is right for your roster and your start-sit decisions. But that's kind of where I'm at is volume. You have to he's one of those awkward he's between a first, between a second. There's no clear line. So you just have to kind of find a trade that fits that value based on your two rosters. Zach, is that over-describing it? Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, I had this question in my DMs or a similar. It was should I drop Aaron Jones and pick up.
Oh,
I don't even remember who it was, but Chuba Hubbard. And I understand the fact that like Aaron Jones has underperformed aside from week 1. He hurt his hamstring. He hasn't come back quite as quickly as, but he to your point, he is going to score points. But he's a player that I think you can get. I mean, it's like what you said, where you can add a piece to Rashid Shaheed, who is kind of a flavor of the week, like to get Aaron Jones, who is actually undervalued. So. Can I go back to Anthony's question with the Godwin Cooper? Like, I would trade Cooper for a late first right now because I don't think Cooper's value ever comes back. Godwin, I think I would want maybe a first and a second to get there if I'm not in contention.
Yeah, Godwin's a little younger. Yeah, that's fair. And I think what I'm trying to say on the Cooper thing is I don't think his value decreases in the sense that next year he's going to be scoring points like he does.
No, he will.
And so the same value window will be open. So unless I'm pressed to make moves right now, like I'll just wait for that window. If I can't get better right now, maybe in season there's something better. I don't feel time pressured, if you know what I mean.
But the time pressure for you is not Amari Cooper. It's your rebound.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what I'm trying to. Yeah, you said it better. I think that's a good way of going about it. Yeah, a good way of framing it. Better than mine, definitely. Just in tech, 1 QB, half point PPR, 10 team, 24-101. A late 24 second. It's a 1 QB. JSN and Anthony Richardson, 2U. For Jonathan Taylor, Stephon Diggs, and Zach Moss. Should I do it or just run it back with JT next year? Like, I don't... JT's in that window where it's a pretty good idea to trade him. I know this package is a little risky. You're getting the 101, so yeah, probably. Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I want to do with well, I mean...
You'd hope JSN had done a little better, but it's okay. It's okay.
Sending both Diggs and JT hurts.
Yeah.
Because
Moss is doing great this year for a contender.
I mean, and that's fine, but I don't think he's got the value. No. But man, getting the 101, which means you get Marvin Harrison or Brock Bowers or like whoever you want, whatever you decide is the 101. JSN, Richardson, whatever, and a 1 quarterback. But like what I'm trying to do with Jonathan Taylor is send Jonathan Taylor to get JSN and a first.
And you're adding Diggs in the 24 second and Richardson in a 1 QB.
But it's the 101. Like you're not going to get the 101 for JT, like JSN and the 101 for Jonathan Taylor. So like I get it, but it seems just a touch steep.
It's a touch over, but on a build like this is, and if you are sure that's a 101, like there are some leagues where it's my pick I'm trying to trade for, and I'm offering a little bit more than I should because I know I can make sure of that. Then that kind of accounts for it. Because again, that 101 is going to increase. You could take Bowers, you could take Marvin Harrison Jr., everyone's drooling over, or you could take, and not to diminish the JT, Bijan Robinson, or Saquon Barkley's of the world, but there is going to be a running back in this class. Well, there was that one year where the best we could come up with was like that second round pick to the Titans who just flamed out. But normally there's a couple good running backs and one of them fits the bill, as it were. And so you could even work to trade back if you just want to go get the best running back in this class. So the 101 kind of gives you that opportunity. But to that point, and also the JSN is disappointing and Anthony Richardson isn't worth much in a 1 QB league and you're giving Diggs, this is a trade you would have to stay nimble afterwards. It's not you trade it, you've done your job, you're building. You're going to have to look for a Richardson window. You're going to have to actively try to add something to that second to try and make it even better. This is a trade to trade, and you secured the 101 with this massive, giving a little bit too much to get rid of Diggs, if you know what I mean. And it's only that 101 that kind of justifies it. And in order to secure it, you're going to have to keep moving. Don't rest on Anthony Richardson because it's a 1 QB.
And I would rather not. Yeah, I would rather not have Richardson in that deal, Justin.
Yeah.
I would rather have another piece, either another first, because I know Richardson was.
You could do that. Rework it.
Yeah.
That's a nice idea. Yeah, but you could click accept and just try to actively seek out someone who wants Anthony Richardson, or add that second to something to get another first. And just to make yourself feel better, the 101 kind of justifies it. Or try and work counter with the trade. Say, look, Richardson's, it's a 1 QB. Like, what am I going to do with that? And try and add, I don't know, turn that second into a first, 2 firsts and JSN. One of them was a 101. That would be great, I think.
Yeah, but I think Richardson's probably. Yeah. I mean,
you see what I mean? There's a lot more to be moving on with.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're giving up a lot, so don't be afraid to consider it, or at least look at their roster, or consider the trade market afterwards. See what you think you could do with it. Sorry, I meant non-contender. That makes more sense.
Yeah, that changes it. All right, so we got Hurts, Pittman, Kelsey, Jefferson, Levis, Laporta, a late first. So
my
Laporta
initial reaction was the Jefferson side in a build, but the more I think about it, and Laporta obviously, but the more I think about it, the more I think you could do better piecing these guys out, like Hurts.
Hurts is the piece that really gives me pause. So I just traded Tua and got 3 firsts for Tua.
Yeah.
So like maybe Hurts and Jefferson are close. Kelsey, Laporta in the first are a wash, but I'd rather have Pittman than Levis.
That's the thing, that you just end up with a little bit. No matter how I slice it, there's just a little bit left over. I mean, which is fine. I'm not gonna nickel and dime in a trade when you're getting essentially what you need to do to move forward. Laporta's a great way to go with Jefferson in a build.
Yeah,
you're solid. She feels a little off, and on a building team, I might, sometimes you just swallow a value deficit because you know that you're getting the right players, and that's fine.
But it's hard to swallow a value deficit on the quarterback. In a super flex.
I guess at first, if it's I assume it's projected late if you're trading it to this guy who's now getting all these picks.
Well, that's what. Yeah, she said in late 24 first. So
yeah. And so, it's the Levis part that's just like, it feels like it knows it needs something a little extra, and Levis ain't it. But I wouldn't say no just based on that. It's like saying it's a second short. Well, on a trade this big, why throw it out just for a second? But, they're getting a lot. Maybe they could upgrade Levis a little bit, if you feel like you could push it. Would you trade Anthony Richardson? Yes, I would. I'm trying to get that risk off my roster. Again, it's a good window.
As a non-contender,
anyone looking for that, if Richardson has that upside, now's the best time to try to get him that we've seen. But we've seen that cycle before, and it's more about a philosophy of how you want to play. You can do it either way, accurately and well, and still be a winning dynasty team. I tend to err on the side of I want to get rid of that unknown quarterback risk because it's harder to know where the edges are. Because quarterback is to me, as far as I can tell, like a crapshoot. It's a dice roll, and the house normally wins. And so I try and evacuate out of there. I'd rather try and get into Bryce Young because even though he doesn't maybe not have that upside, I think his solidity, he's going to have a job for 3 years. And I think there's going to be up and down windows. I actually think he does have a pretty good ceiling. Is a safer place to park value with Richardson. It's your risk reward tolerance, Tim. Like, are you a complete blackjack player, or are you more the penny slot guy? And I guess I'm more the penny slot guy. So you can go either way. But personally, the way I would play Dynasty, I'm selling. But it always depends on the trade. To be clear, is what I'm trying to say.
I once lost $250 in 6 minutes playing blackjack. and then
I
went
once
to the
lost.
buffet because I knew that I was going to win.
I would be, yeah. That was when we went to Vegas as part of a honeymoon after we got married, and which is normally when those things happen. We actually went through Arizona and stuff, but we stopped in on Vegas through seeing the Grand Canyon and stuff. And I enjoyed those little computer blackjack tables because I actually don't want to interact with people, but a computer, sure. And we loved it. And we went up $60, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! I can game. This is math." And the house always wins. And by the end of it, I was down like $40, like between us, and we felt like shit for the next 2 days. And we figured out we're not gamblers. We can't take the highs and lows of a $40 swing. We probably shouldn't. That's probably not it was really fun. But some people have that in them and some don't. And I was like, oh,
well,
no, this sucks.
With something like that, I'll play poker, and that's fine because the house takes a rake, so you're playing against the other players, but the house takes their money. Right. So it's the odds are what the odds are. With something like blackjack or craps or roulette or the slots, I just figure I'm paying them for entertainment. Yeah. So I don't expect to win. It's just
But I think that would make sense for me too. But again, poker is you sit down, you look at people, you interact. It's just not me. That part's just not going to work with me. Otherwise, I agree with the.
You could online poker. They have that. That's back, right? I don't know. I haven't played. I know that for when I was in college, that was a thing because I did a lot of that. But
Puff Pass Kiss. What's Dallas got it worth in a 14 team? So something. Superflex, 2-point tight end premium. The premium doesn't matter to me. Goddard's really interesting in a 14 team, especially, I think.
Mid first?
Yeah. Mid's high. But yeah, sure. Yeah, why not?
I mean, a 2-point premium puts Goddard up there, though, right?
Yep. He also extends the flexibility of the tight end position, and I think Goddard might just fall into that range.
Yeah. But
so mid to late first seems pretty good for all of those guys. Ingram, Dallas Goddard, Kittle's a little higher than that, but the group. Nice. Hopkins still a beast. He's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive career.
He is very good.
Statistically, one of the more frustrating, actually. Interestingly, but
somebody tweeted out a clip of DeAndre Hopkins making a play last week, and it said, "Vintage DeAndre Hopkins." DeAndre Hopkins quote tweeted, and he's like, "This is just me. This is how I am." Yeah, it's not vintage. It's like I'm still this guy.
Yeah, I did this last week. Waiting on it. And again, worth remembering the old guys get it done. What's his redraft outlook with Levis?
Better than Tannehill. No, Levis is Peter. Levis is a DGAF guy, and DeAndre Hopkins is a go get it.
Yeah, even Hopkins is QB sensitive. The one bad year he's got on record is when he went through a plethora of quarterbacks, the like of which a team has never seen. But he was still okay. He's still the quality of the player can make up somewhat for the lack of quality of the quarterback. And so there's an interesting balance there where he loses the top range of his outcomes, but he's still, got a pretty good outlook. He's instead of like 14-1, it's now 26-8, in terms of his points per game. So somewhere in there, I wouldn't be too dismissive, but as long as Adam Thielen's out there in redraft, is probably a better trade for this year. He's my wide receiver 4. That's a really good situation. Yeah, you're good. Infinitely flexible. Like you never feel bad putting Hopkins in your lineup, even when the downturn happens, if it ever happens, you feel pretty good flexing a potential Hall of Famer just for the hell of it. Actually this year in redraft, Waddle, if it's PPR, Deontay might even beat out Waddle. And Waddle had a great game this week. He is that. But his weekly ceiling is a little capped with the current share of the offense. And it's not Tyreek Hill is so great. It's the team loves to run in the red zone. And with Tyreek Hill being basically the rest of the scoring offense, that limits Waddle a little bit. I mean, there are more complex aspects to it, obviously, and Waddle is still great, can do great things with the targets he gets, and he gets significant routes and significant targets, but it's always going to be a little capped. This top 12 finish is going to be the rarity of his season unless something changes. So, yeah, I'd feel pretty good having Hopkins, so you can matchups a little bit with those bottom three and just keep chasing there no matter what. Downs in that mix as well. What do you think about Khalil Shakir or Pop Douglas? Nice. Zach, do you have an opinion?
They're fine. I mean, they're like, you're hoping they become flex plays.
Yeah. Gabriel Davis is Raheed Shaheed's upside. Raheed Shaheed is Khalil Shakir's upside. I actually kind of liked Shakir as a deeper rookie pick. You know, that guy you add in the 4th or 5th round if you're interested in a wide receiver, and normally I'm not. He had a pretty interesting production profile, but that's who he is. He's a guy who's going to make NFL plays. Hopefully, he's going to have a pretty good NFL career. I'm rooting for him, but I'm not, this is the next secret Adam Thielen or anything, kind of underdrafted guy who's suddenly going to show up. He's going to make plays. He's on a really good team to do that on. I don't think either ever sustain long-term volume or startability or anything like that, but I'm really happy to see him show up. Type of player you love to have on your roster in a best ball league, because you had that one dynasty thought in the 4th round of a rookie draft, and every now and again you pick up the weekly points and you're like, oh, that's because I'm a genius, right? Not because I just forgot I rostered him. Popons for Peter and Zach. Come on now. 6-2. Oh, congrats, man. That's a pretty good situation to be in. Trade Dimes, a 24 first, a 26 first for Breece Hall. And presumably you're going to be winning, so they're low picks. Your running backs are Najee, Ramondre, and Brian Robinson Jr. So Breece Hall immediately jumps to the front. Got it. I can't, you didn't see whether it's a super flex or not, which changes Dime's value. He's probably going to start sooner rather than later, especially now. So that weighs into it. But by and large, even in a super flex, Dimes and 2 firsts, presuming mid to late, for Hall. Yeah, why not? On a contender where Breece Hall is going to affect you weekly, yeah, I kind of like that trade. If they can recognize the value in it, I think that's a pretty good trade for you. Yeah.
We already got that one at the beginning of the show. So that's
okay,
where I was too. I was on the Hall side. Like, you hate to give up a quarterback, but whatever. Yeah.
On a winning team, I get it. Yeah. Can't play scared. Although I do. Enter the Para 4. Is there ever a bad time to buy Mark Andrews?
Not yet.
Not when Zach Reed's on the screen. We don't admit to those times.
Not yet.
No, actually. I will say, like, I rarely target him because it never feels like his value moves. He's just Mark Andrews, a guy that's not Travis Kelce, but should be up there. And that's why I was on Kittle a lot. But the few places I have Mark Andrews on my roster, every time I go look at my roster, when I get to that part, I'm like, I feel pretty good. That feels great. It feels great to have Mark Andrews. You know, you're just like, don't have to think about that no more. I got that guy. Okay. And the value feels solid and secure. Yeah, it's pretty much no. The tight end buy-sell window is really interesting because they're incredibly volatile until they're Mark Andrews, until they're Kelce. Kittle's actually been the one guy who's been highly volatile despite being that guy, and almost a Jordan Reed type, although that was a different story. So yeah, no, you just actually, I tell you what, I'm going to default to something I heard Jacob Rickroad say, or read Jacob Rickroad say on Twitter this off season, which was speaking about this rookie class. And it was, if you told me there was the next Rob Gronkowski, for sure, absolutely 100%, you know the future, you're Marty McFly, here's my DeLorean, you know. In this draft, there would be very little to stop him trading everything to try and get the pick he needed to get that player. And it wasn't, it's an exaggerate. He didn't say all of those words, but that was the sentiment. And I liked heightening the value of that type of player on your roster, because you can't almost exaggerate how hard they are to catch, how long they play, and how much value they add over replacement, and how hard they are to trade for after the fact. I was listening to the DLF trade, the flagship podcast this week, and they were talking about how Travis Kelce owners are just Travis Kelce owners, and they'll never trade him for you, even though his value's gone down. And it's because, like, find me another Travis Kelce, and I'll consider it. Like, I might not see another one for 10 years. Like, but building, contending or not, it makes sense. And Mark Andrews is just that really solid value in that. The only other guy kind of in that consideration outside of Laporta right now, especially with Kittle being a week on, week off kind of a guy at this point. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on about that, but it's really, I think it's a really good point. It's almost never a bad time to trade for Mark Andrews. Thanks for the Levis take earlier. I was not impressed with him during the combine. Hopkins made those throws look better by attacking and tracking the ball. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, to Zach's point, Hopkins is going to fix a lot of your problems, because he can do some.
Yeah, but the nice thing is Levis will throw it, which Tannehill
gives him the chance. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. It's weird. It's like you're good at this, or you know some things. I don't know. I don't like it.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut occasionally. I like to set the bar low. We can step over it. It's perfect.
Awesome. Caesar, 12-team super flex. We buying Cousins? For what? But no. I'm rebuilding him. Cousins owner is offering Cousins for a foot. No.
No. Cousins and a first for Dak. No. Nowhere
close. Dak was over Cousins before this. Like, rooting for the player, you got to assume he finds another job. I mean, how many can do that? Or even gets his job back, you assume. But there's contract concerns, and there's NFL money concerns, and all that stuff comes in at this, even in a quarterback's career. And he's not one of those guys you can just be like, well, Aaron Rodgers is fucking wild, but it's Aaron Rodgers when he plays, we hope. And even that doesn't work out sometimes. Look at Russell Wilson. Look at Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, you just know he's worth a second until he's not.
Yeah, anymore. And Caesar, I see what you're doing where you say you're rebuilding. Cousins is offering you Cousins and that first, but that first is 2 years out.
Yeah.
Cousins is not a value proposition at quarterback. Like, people don't value Kirk Cousins. So, like, even when he's healthy, people don't value Kirk Cousins. So, Kirk Cousins is a points quarterback, although he's not scoring points right now. But, like, you're never going to get a return on Kirk Cousins like what you're giving up to get him.
Yep.
And so getting that 25 first doesn't offset the fact that you're not getting what you need to back for Cousins, and the 25 first is another year out. Like, if you're going to trade Dak, and that's fine as a rebuilding team, although I don't think you need to feel like you have to, but if you're going to trade Dak, go trade Dak for a different quarterback, a younger quarterback, and a pick, because Dak should be I just traded Dak for 3 firsts in one of my leagues. So, or
must
2
be nice.
firsts. It was 2 firsts and a second.
I can get 3 firsts for Lamar Jackson in my leagues, my man. Just throwing there.
I saw it. It happened. I saw it.
Nope, that wasn't 3 firsts. One of them was Baker Mayfield.
That
doesn't count.
He's like a 5th.
Yeah, exactly. I like the question though, Caesar. To be clear, that was my first thought. Well, not my first thought, obviously, but that was my first Dynasty thought after I found out about the injury, because I don't watch games. So after I found out, it was, is Kirk Cousins a decent injury buy? Because that's a fairly solid source for Dynasty. And exactly the thought process I just laid out, and Zach went into better detail there, was I don't think the trades are going to be there, either right now or after. Right now, he's too valued. This is too much. And later, it won't bounce up because no one values Kirk Cousins. And so it's a market inefficiency, like Tyler Lockett, like Marcus Brown, and it's unfortunate. But looking at your roster, though, he's just lost a quarterback. He should be willing to send you his presumed late first now for Baker, for Watson, and those guys I would easily trade away. Or Richardson, first plus. This is an opportunity to get a contending team interested in this plethora of quarterback starters that you've got. But Dak is the one that's just nowhere near this.
Yeah, to me, Cousins is a buy if your team has it. Like if you're the team who rostered Nick Chubb and whoever Jefferson, like the injury team. Like if your team is good but not good this year because you ran into injuries, that's the team that I want to go send the second and get Cousins, because all of a sudden now next year you've got a potential top 12 quarterback that you got for a second because he was hurt.
But I would agree with that value as well. Like Cousins for a second, I'd be like, yeah, sure, that's a buying injured. But here, like Dak should be worth slightly more than 2 firsts in a super flex league. So Cousins is being too valued here anyway. But to our point, Richardson's hot and sexy, but he's a contender, so he should be willing. But he won't be because it's Baker Mayfield. So maybe you need to throw in Zach Wilson and say, then you can stream him, and you're a contender, and maybe you're winning, and you can get top 12 when you stream both of them or something. You might be able to put that thought processes in his head. But this is an opportunity. That's an opportunity to try and move some of these quarterbacks because he's contending. He wants a quarterback, but he ain't getting that value out of Cousins from you. Like he's the one who needs something, and you're not even holding his feet to the fire. You're just asking him to respect that you need to go in a direction to help him go in a direction. And the trade he's offered you here just ain't doing it. But it's the right thought. I think your head's in the exact right place, thinking about the fact that he's injured, that he's good when he's on the field. So good question to ask. And definitely feels like something could be worked out there, but not that. Genji says it best. Nope.
That's very Hemingway. Kirk Cousins, it rains. That's it. Nope.
Exactly. Tommy, what's Kyler Murray's trade value in a 1 QB format? Assuming Dynasty, late first.
I'm not paying a first for a quarterback.
I think he could be one of those top 5 quarterbacks. So again, when he's back in the field, so maybe a late first. Like if you're really shooting for that moon, but you're trying not to give up a first. It's a quarterback and a super flex. Like, how can I make them feel like they're getting that value without giving them a first? Is kind of the equation. But and I'm a little high. Like Zach's reaction's probably a better synonym for where Dynasty should be on, but I've been kind of buying in, and I'm kind of rooting for it at this point. So maybe I'm a little too hyped, but that's kind of where I'm at.
No, and I don't think you're too high on Murray. I think Murray's he's a top 5 quarterback. I really think he is,
but he would have to pay off on that if you traded your late first for him. So you are right to be just a little hesitant. But B-Dags, 12-team Superflex PPR start 10, no tight end premium. Thanks for letting me know. Trade Andrews and Scary Terry for Olave and Mayer. Ooh, Mayer's not the best. He's fine. Andrews for Olave. It's pretty good in Dynasty, assuming you're moving in the build direction. Terry for Mayer. I can't help valuing Andrews more because he's got that positional edge, but I think in most calculators, like Olave wins. Like more teams are going to be more willing to trade more easily for Olave in the future. But for me, Andrews holds a little bit more roster value,
to me, it's a positional advantage. I don't think Olave gives you a positional advantage. I know that Andrews does.
Good and cool, and top 24 to be ranked higher and young.
Yeah, and I get what you're doing.
Definitely.
Like I get that you're trying to get younger. I get you're trying to get more value because Olave obviously has the most value of anybody in this piece. But I don't think Mayer is a difference-making tight end. And you're giving up a difference-making tight end and a good wide receiver too.
Yeah.
McLaurin's a good wide receiver too.
No, I wasn't disagreeing.
Yeah. So, and for Olave, who obviously has the kind of cachet from last year, he's been fine this year, and Mayer's the piece that kind of drags it down for me. I would rather have
I see what
Andrews and McLaurin.
You're almost flipping the value from one position to the other, but the thing is, I want to go the other way with that because again. Dynasty is scared of age. I'm not. I want those positional advantage points. That's what I'm tracking. That's what I'm really seeking out. And so you kind of go in the opposite way, looking for youth, which, yeah, again, is one good way to play Dynasty. I know a whole bunch of Dynasty players just focus on it and do great, beat me. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's a terrible idea. I'm saying for me, no. I'll go the other way. How far would you need to go from away from Olave before this gets to be interesting for you? Like, just to give B-Dags an idea. Like, I was throwing, if that was Addison, would I say yes?
You mean Addison or
if that was CD Lamb, if that was Jalen Waddle, how high do we need to go in wide receivers before like, okay, that balances it?
Yeah, like I mean, I think you gotta be up in that. Yeah, I mean Wilson and Olave aren't that far apart. I don't think. I mean, I would want somebody like the Lamb, AJ Brown, that.
So group. up, right?
Yeah, but I mean, maybe I was
thinking maybe that would just help frame it here. Like, yeah, that's fine. I think that's where my mind went as well. Yeah,
yeah. You know, the St. Brown, that next kind of tier up from Olave.
Oh, St. Brown, really lovely there. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I think this is,
and maybe you don't get. Maybe you don't get.
Yeah, I think I would take the Andrews side.
Yeah,
my internet sucks. I know. I'm sorry.
You look good though.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Final word on this, B-Dags. No, I think in Dynasty, the best process, even on a builder, is to value that positional advantage for Andrews, to be clear. Yeah. But depends on the league, and you know your league a little better. If you think Olave is going to trade a little easier and you're a building team, this trade makes perfect sense to trade for the youth because you're not always going to find that value for Andrews. Like, again, like Zach said before, if you're a decent team that's not winning this year, this is a no for me. If you're a bad team that's not going to win this year or next year until you make changes, yeah, I could see it. Otherwise, because one aspect of this is the only way to get the value of that decent wide receiver 2 that Terry McLaurin is out of him is to put him in a trade where he's not the centerpiece, because hardly anyone likes trading for that guy at that value, and you're actually getting something like his value here. So yeah, that's where I'm at. If you're a good team that's just not winning this year, no. If you're a bottom 15% team, which is nothing, says nothing about your ability to be clear. It's just some teams end up there. Yeah, I can see it. You're trading for youth. You're adding probably more tradable piece to more teams in your league. It kind of makes sense. Genji, can we redraft the rookie class? Oh, please no. I'd have to put Puka so high. Bijan, Richardson, Stroud. So this is a super flex rank. Young, Puka, Addison, Gibbs, A-Chain, JSN, Laporta, Levis, and Flowers. Zach, do you want to go first? Because I will take 7 minutes to say 3 names on account of my lag.
So I think for me, it's Bijan, Stroud. I guess it's Richardson and Young. I'm still like a little tentative on them, but they're quarterbacks. So yeah, fine. It's Addison, then Nakua, then Gibbs, then JSN, then A-Chain, Laporta, Flowers, whatever.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised on that one. If we were doing a rookie draft right now, knowing what we know this far into the season,
maybe Addison's even higher. I don't know.
I think. No, I love that you put Addison there. By the way, that was my favorite part. In a super flex, I will probably go. off the top of my head,
Actually,
putting
Stroud
all
may
the
be
little
one.
asterisks on here so I can check my answers later. That's what I was going to say. I'll
Yeah.
put Stroud 1.
Yeah.
Don't you stole my fire there, man.
I like it.
I'll put Stroud 1. And I might put Laporta 2.
Ooh. Whew. That's fire. I like it.
If his value really should get up there into the top 50s, 40s. I mean, not saying I'm going to keep him at that value, but could you not make a next Travis Kelce argument? Should we not at least consider that upside and start really valuing him in there? Outside of that, Bijan Robinson, yeah, then Young should be Puka, but I'm going to say Addison. I'm not going to get Addison.
I don't even think it should be. But like, no offense to Puka, but Addison has done enough that
phenomenal.
Yeah, like he is that guy, and like Puka's been good. I still trust Addison more than I trust Nacua.
That's kind of where I'm at, because I like my rookie profile on him, and I'm always a little hesitant. I know I should be quicker. I can't make an anti-argument on Puka in terms of volume or performance on volume. He's just doing it.
Yeah.
But I trust my Addison process, so I'm still Addison. I think Gibbs, over the last few weeks, he would be infinitely easier to trade right now, and probably into the offseason outside of an injury. I think Gibbs might jump above him if this was a rookie draft. So, yeah, Stroud, Laporta, Bijan, then probably Gibbs, Addison, Puka, A-Chain, Flowers, JSN. He's fallen down there. And then stuff. I still wouldn't draft Levis. So you couldn't make me draft Levis. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, you can obviously value, but Caesar, I would take that offer. See, Jazz Fresh is an aggressive trader. It's a good thing. Again, depending on how you play Dynasty, you can easily make that work. Sorry, I'm looking for the trade.
Russ Fisher says the only way to fix a bad trade is to make another trade.
To my point about this point in the offseason, you got to try and make moves, and these are the moves that are presenting themselves, trying to take advantage of them. Yeah.
Yep.
Levis valued off one game. I mean, he's got a job right now and a quarterback that matters. It does. Can you ever remember a season with this much QB chaos? Yeah, I think the chaos of the position. Yeah, I can remember more chaos actually. Back to that DeAndre Hopkins here. What's sticking out to me is how little advantage the best QBs are offering. Their points per game are low, and the difference between their points per game and the next tier of QBs barely. It's still there, but it's barely existent. And QB has been a hard one, especially since I'm mainly playing Superflex ranks and leagues and do Superflex ranks. That's what's been standing out to me the most. Like my worst teams right now that I thought would be competitive and aren't, I stacked at QB. Like no one would, except for John Hogue, no one would say my Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray teams are pretty good at quarterback. And they're the ones that are struggling, when usually they just carry me, and any other mistakes I make, they kind of just plaster over like a good builder, just hiding the mistakes. But no, they just can't do it this year. It's been noticeable. And but the chaos is rampant, AJD. To be clear, I'm not dismissing your observation there. Like, yeah, it's been pretty wild. The number of third string quarterbacks starting this year, it's not common.
and the fact that Jordan Love is within like 4.5 or 5 points a game to Josh Allen and Mahomes and Hurts, and Brock Purdy is within like 5.5 or 6 points a game. Like, that's wild.
I mean, Matthew Stafford teams are winning right now. That's where we're at. Matthew Stafford was a big value at quarterback.
Yeah.
And we're in a season where a team who just like Kirk Cousins has to look Baker Mayfield in the face and think, I have to like that guy right now. Like that's chaos. It's like I just have to like that. Yep. Here's my late first. Genji, I've got Kyler, Anthony Richardson, and the 101.
Yes.
Should I trade Anthony Richardson for Pickens and a 224 first? Yes, I would do that. Yeah, that's fine, man.
I don't know if you can get that done, but you should. That is definitely a trade that I would make.
I assume that was the offer.
Yeah, you get
if that's
you
an
get
offer, you have to take it.
Pickens and then 2 more kicks at the can. Well, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Jazz Fresh. As a rebuilder, I actually see Kelsey as a key piece to a quicker rebuild. That positional advantage, man, it's valuable. It's just too much of an advantage. He's got, quarter tight ends. No one will believe me on this because when you check it with smart guys like Adam Harstead himself, when he looks at the prime years left, tight end doesn't stick out. But as far as I can tell, the guys, once you account for the survivorship bias, they just play, man. Yeah. they just keep being those guys. Like tight end's really noticeable for a lot longer into their career than you expect. Yeah. AJD, Anthony Richardson was a top 10 quarterback before the injury. He was doing very well, which is why I'm still I'm not trading him for cheap. Trade him no matter what. But at his value right now, I'm pretty comfortable trading him away because of the I don't know aspect of it. But it's a good thing to remember who did well, even in a small sample. I don't mind that process. I'll have to get offered a ton to get rid of him. That's cool. You're taking that upside ride, man. I've done that with a bunch of players, and I wish you luck on it. Who else in fantasy has as much as... That's another good point. That's kind of what we were saying in the rookie draft. He has more upside than most. You could put him in that Jacob Rickbro comment why I put Laporta so high in my redraft of the rookie class there. Like, that positional advantage is worth it. And I'll say the same thing I said in the rookie season. I don't think we can project it. We can see the potential, and it's there. And we saw it a little bit through the first 2 games. But until it's here, until it's Mahomes already and Herbert already, I will pay the iron price when I know that's not where I'm looking to guess, because I think we get a better odds bet, like versus the house, talking about casinos earlier, at other places looking for those edges, and then I'll just pay the iron price at that one. And because occasionally you get the Kyler Murray window, occasionally you get the Herbert window this offseason. There's still a chance to maybe get them at pretty decent value. But Zach, you're trying to say something better.
Yeah, who else in fantasy has as much upside as Anthony Richardson? All of the top 8 quarterbacks, and again, it's Anthony Richardson was a top 10 quarterback before his injury. He also ran for 5 touchdowns in 4 games.
Yeah, which was kind of the if he does that, he'd be great.
Yeah, but that's a lot. He wasn't running for a ton of yards. Yeah. Like, he was running for like between 30 and 50 yards a game, which is good, like for a running quarterback. But he also completed fewer than or less than 60% of his passes. Had the rushing touchdowns buoy him. And like, again, this is not to say that Anthony Richardson is bad, but it's saying that what you're seeing is him as a top 10 quarterback in the 4 games that he was healthy is only part of the story, and it's a very small sample size and a lot of rushing touchdowns in a very short amount of time, buoying that fantasy production. So if I can go get whatever that trade was, where you can get Pickens and 2 firsts, like, especially if one of the firsts is early in this 24, like, man, yeah, let's go.
Kyler Murray has that range of outcomes, not exactly that ultimate ceiling. But I also, don't want to place full value on a 1 percentile outcome on a player's range of outcomes, if you know what I mean, which is where you play the value game. You can fully go in on the outside, AJD. Like, I'm rooting for Richardson, and he was really high scoring in those few games. He has an unusual ceiling, to say the least, as well. But I adjust for it. I'm not paying for that 1 percentile outcome. But if we're in the 75th percentile range, then you can go in on that. If you're paying for 75% of his upside outcome, it makes sense. But you just got to adjust for it in the other areas that you play on your roster. Like, you got to be making safer bets elsewhere, so you maintain your value and your points per game and everything.
you just mentioned Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
We forget because it's 2023, but in 2021, Kyler Murray was a top 4 points per game, and in 2020 he was scoring over 24 points per game as a quarterback. So like there are players out there who have Anthony Richardson upside who we've already seen do that. And the likelihood, like Murray was the overall QB2 in 2020. The likelihood of him doing that again is a lot higher than Anthony Richardson doing it the first time, I think.
I can mention 3 active in the NFL right now that have a higher ceiling, not something
Lamar?
we should project into Anthony Richardson's ceiling. No, I would say he's in the same range. I think Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce, they have provided a fantasy value that hardly any player would or should ever. Christian McCaffrey should actually be on that list in terms of his whole career arc. So, like, who has as much upside? Well, I've seen more upside that we could ever hope for. Active in the NFL right now and at the same and in fact lower value in some cases. If we value Richardson over that trade that you just mentioned, Pickens and 2 firsts, then we're starting to put him in the Hurts category. Hurts,
right?
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes category, and that's where I'm like, no, I'm not betting on that range of outcomes.
Well, because
but if it's below that, sure,
you assume all the risk if you do that.
But, all the risk. And again, even slightly lower than that, at that Pickens and 2 firsts, I'm not building my teams that way, but I think it's very fair. You obviously were really rooting for him. You're a fan, and much like myself, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just saying all I can do as someone trying to comment on Dynasty, trying to get better and trying to offer advice on how to go forward is keep it in that range. Like, be a full fan, but try to get yourself into that, not assuming the full risk range. That's the best way to plug it forward. But I'm just an idiot talking on Twitch at 10 to midnight on a Wednesday. So hopefully you would just enjoy bantering ideas around about fantasy as well, my man. Dan, I have an offer to move Anthony Richardson from Kyler and a mid-24 first.
Yes.
Like, that's awesome. That's the kind of thing where I'm not fully in. I'm not going to assume that hard time risk. I'm like, okay, here's a way for me to sidestep. I actually think I've done better and more. Run your multiple simulations. So I do that. My other QBs are Mahomes and Allen. Wow.
Yeah, and 7-1 and can't pull the trigger because of A-Rich's upside. Do it because if you trade for Kyler and you get that first, you've got a first and you've got the flexibility that you could move Mahomes or Allen, who are going to be just this huge return, and you're not losing very much because you've got Kyler. Like, you've got so much flexibility with Kyler because all of a sudden you're not assuming the risk. There's a lot less risk with Kyler. There's a lot more chance that Kyler's a top 5 quarterback than Anthony Richardson is, and you get a first back. Do that, Dan. That would be. And
on a contender, I get the upside argument. We just had that whole thing. I think I've laid out my position pretty well. But that first trades so much more easily to so many more teams in your league. Those that aren't buying into or don't understand the upside that you see, Dan, like, you just slip a first into a trade to get this win, to get this league done. You've won this year. Even at 7-1, there's always a move like that, especially in the playoffs. Shit gets crazy. Like, that first, I think, opens up more doors than Richardson, just because Richardson, it takes understanding the upside and a team willing to go in on that, and it's an actual player. Was that first to all the other teams who aren't looking top 3 or aren't 7-1 right now, just smooths over so many trade ideas. Like, I just want to bolster my wide receiver core this year. I'm going to add Puka. I'm going to add Christian McCaffrey to this team. Whatever it is you don't have when you need it, I think that first makes it a little easier. And winning is the highest upside. I guess is what I'm saying.
That's one where
I think it's a great trade.
You could conceivably slide that first and like a expendable piece and go try to get somebody like Diggs. Then all of a sudden you can just hammer the league like that. Dan, I think the fungibility, that's the word of the week. Fungibility. The fungibility of that pick, the flexibility, the fact that pick, every team in your league wants that pick. Not every team in your league is after Richardson. You should value Kyler over Richardson. I know it's hard to do because Richardson is new and shiny and you can dream on him. And Kyler plays video games. He's focused on Call of Duty. And so there's this like negative swirl of Kyler, and you haven't seen him for half a year or since week 14 last year. So like, but Kyler, man, this is a really good trade for you, Dan.
This is actually, I'm not going to bring up the term because it's way too nerdy even for a Dynasty podcast, but you got to think concretely when you're in a winning position, especially. And Anthony Richardson isn't concrete thinking. It's trying to have everyone else's cake and eat it too. Whereas thinking Kyler Murray first opens up these doors and still provides this upside. It's a little less, grandiose, but it's a more concrete way of trying to play for your team right now. And I think that's the best way to be in Dynasty in general. But, those are just thoughts, Dan. It is your team. I know it would pretty cool if Richardson hit and you kept him and you got to come back and tell us, hey, idiots, I kept him and now look. But you got to play your own team the way you want. But that's where we're at. And Genji would rather have Kyler because he knows. Also, official league winner. I see the title there. You can't fake that. So. I'm not going to send Hurts. I made the offer and withdrew it yesterday. I was more interested in Jefferson, and yeah, I appreciate the idea of the trade, but hate the idea of Levis Rodgers. It's almost laughable. I don't know, it's laughable. Again, when I say I was a little on the fence about it, but yeah, I think you made the right choice there ultimately. Andrews,
yeah,
he is fine. Kelsey 2023, Bowers 10 years apart. There you go. It's a 10-year cycle. History is a flat circle.
I really hope Bowers doesn't like Kelsey hurt his knee like his first year. Like he was out.
Oh yeah, it was a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, tight end's always a little weird. Even Laporta, if this is the start of that journey for him, it's a little weird to do it this way, to be honest. Most don't. Open 24 hours, traded Pitts for a 24 first and second. It feels like a low window, but whatever. Dude got dragged in the league chat and wants me to reverse it. Okay, says he thought he was trading away Pitts. Trade stands or what? I'm also the commish. It's difficult when you're the commish. If this was someone else's league, let's say, I would say it's up to you. He made the trade. He clicked upset. Except he had the option to go and read the trade properly and make his decision, and he didn't. Building relationships as the guy in the trade, I'm normally willing to just reverse a trade if someone's like, rah, 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 rah. I'm like, you know what? Sure.
So to me, it's
but that's me. I'm a little pushover. So
to me, it's how quickly did he say, "Oh, I made a mistake." Like if you made that trade and he immediately said, "That's my fault. I thought I was trading for, or I thought I was trading away Pitts or whatever." Like, then fine. But if it was like 6 hours later and he got dragged in the chat and then was like, "Oh," like then
if I was a
have
commissioner,
a lot less sympathy.
If I was just a commissioner in this league and not part of the trade, that's kind of the thought process I'd go down. One team doesn't want to do it, one team does. Well, how quickly did he say he accidentally accepted?
Yeah.
And then maybe you're like, well, look, dude, it's just, we're going to have to no harm, no foul here, and we'll just reverse it. But since you're part of the trade as well, that puts you in a unique position where you can either say you're willing to do it or not. And you can go either direction. You can either, I would not want to reverse it. Personally, I want to keep that trade. But yeah, you can go either way. I think personally, if I was in this exact situation, I'd just reverse it. I'd be like, sure. I don't think that trade's a walk-off win, by the way. Like I don't mind the trade, but I don't think it's not great. You didn't get 2 firsts or anything. And I think Pitts has better days in the future, and he's young and pretty good. We're seeing Evan Ingram resurgence, and Pitts has done slightly better than that to this point in his career versus Ingram. So yeah, I don't mind having pits anyway, and also just smoothing relationships is one of the things I try to do in general. But again, I can also be a bit of a pushover. So if you're not that way, you should feel free to say no, dude. It's not in the rules. You had time. You didn't do it quick enough. If this was someone else's trade, I would say you weren't quick enough. And so it feels a little sus, like you went away and got advice and came back. You had the opportunity to look at the trade. You didn't have to click accept immediately. And if I was just going to start reversing trades when anytime anyone said they had hard feelings without at least some sort of time limit, it would be chaos. So I'm not doing it. You can go either way. Personally, I'd probably just reverse it, but there's no need for you to.
This is one where like you should have pretty clear bylaws outlining this constitutes a trade.
It's a reason to write out another bylaw, if nothing else. Yeah. Say, look, we're putting this in here so that in the future we have this way to make a decision. And it takes it out of I'm part of this trade and the commish. If we write it in the bylaws and or accepted this off season, then we won't get in this nasty situation again where we have to question my motivations. It's written down. Bowers is 24. That's apart from the fact that everyone loves him, that's the second thing that I know about him.
No. 24, the class.
Oh, she means 2024. Yeah. But that didn't make that. You see what he's trying. Let's just fudge that a little bit. We get to make those decisions. It's fine. Yeah. If Caesar has shopped Dak and that's his best offer, why not accept it or ask for a hair more? Depends on whether Caesar is with max points. If that determines the draft. Fair enough. I think I broke that in that trade and how I feel about it to the excess. So I don't think I think that's a very fair way of assessing it as well. Grimley 1314, 12 teams with flex PPR. Got rid of Quentin Johnson for an early second. He's 0-8 and a 25 third. I think you sold a hair low, especially since he just had his first positive game.
Yeah.
But honestly, we're kind of in the dice roll of the universe here of which direction Quentin Johnson takes, because it wasn't a great game. He's going to have many more like that before that, for that trade to fail, But a second isn't overly tempting. I get your 0-8, but I would have added a second to try and get a first before I would trade him straight for a second, just because he's a young player with that, week 9 range of outcomes.
Yep.
But it's fine. Yeah, I just immediately after I trade him, you're all welcome, by the way. I trade him away in the one place that I drafted him, immediately has a 50-yard gain. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. God damn you, Jake. No, I'm actually good with the trade still. Career ended. 12 teams with flex top 10. I'm contending just dealt Waddle, London, Spears, and a 24 first and 25 second for JJ, Michael Thomas, and 223.
That is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot to swallow. Let's see. JJ Waddle in the first, sure. And London, Spears, and the seconds from Michael Thomas.
I would rather have the Waddle, London, Spears first side.
Yeah,
as much as I like Justin Jefferson, I would rather have that side.
I think it's pretty handily, the Waddle side. I like rolling it all up into the one player, don't get me wrong. There's extra value to that roster spot. And Justin Jefferson is awesome. I think he paid the iron price. I'm not scared of it. Like, Waddle's the best, JJ's the best player in this deal, so, you can't lose. But I think you dealt too much for him. Like, I think London, it's Waddle that I hate losing for this trade, but I think London has plenty of trade possibilities to other teams. That's fine. But yeah, I'm on the Waddle side. Seems like much. Does seem like much, but again, getting Justin Jefferson shouldn't be easy, to be honest. Your latency has you guys talking over each other without knowing it, and it's hilarious. Sorry, Genji, that's all my fault. My internet is run by a hamster. Zach's doing his best to guess when I'm not talking, but it's pretty difficult, as you might imagine. I don't know why. It's been really bad lately. The weather just changed. It just dropped below. I know it's really cold right now, and I think that's we're really temperamental on the weather over here.
No, I'm just not going to talk.
There we go. Jazz Fresh. Laporta at the 102. I don't hate it. Good take. I always hate saying that stuff without, someone else having said it, but it just feels reasonable, And thanks for the backup there, Jazz Fresh, because it felt a little hot takey, but I hope it's not. Jordan Love sucks. Well,
yes.
Welcome to the realization, Genji. Welcome to the movement. Jazz Fresh. Yes, Jordan Love has set the last several games, and the first several games, it was all that touchdown rate that we spent so long, not trying to say it's bad, but that's not going to sustain, yeah. Also, crap supporting cast. I assume you mean me. It's fine. But our supporting cast is half decent. Romeo Dubs has been okay. Christian Watson, I don't know what's going on with him this season. I don't think he's what everyone thought he was, but he's not. He's got a skill set, and a good quarterback can use it, as we've seen. I'm not trying to crap on Jordan Love any more than I already have. I wish him well. He's not Blake Bortles. There you go. EJD, Hurts and Allen score a lot of rushing. And EJD, I don't think that was his point. Neither Hurts nor Allen score rushing touchdowns at that rate. And touchdown rates are very sensitive to regression in that you don't continue to produce touchdowns at a very stable rate. It actually stabilizes towards an average pretty successfully. Now, it would be fair to say Richardson has a higher touchdown rate expectation, but not that high. And so we hadn't seen enough games to see really where the line was. If you could sustain that level of rushing production or that production without simply scoring touchdowns, especially since it was more touchdowns than yards, because that's just succeeding on rushing attempts inside the 5. And those are, not Hail Marys, but they're less likely to succeed than they had been doing in the few small sample we'd seen. That's what he was pointing out, that if you stretch that out, his production wouldn't have been that good over 12 games as over 3, because that touchdown rate wouldn't sustain. So maybe we were a little exaggerated because we're fantasy players and, they were great fantasy days.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah. 5 touchdowns in 4 games is a lot. Hurts, when one of the most efficient offenses in the league, has 6 rushing touchdowns in 8 games.
Yeah. Even at a high rate, it's probably not going to be that high, even for Richardson long term.
Also completing 68% of his passes this year and 65%. He's a better player. Hurts is.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Well,
and that's all.
Definitely
same
known to be. If Anthony Richardson can be as good as Jalen Hurts is the question, and that's a hard bar to hit. Again, respect what Hurts has done. It's not and because he can rush, he can also do what Jalen Hurts does.
Right.
I hope so, but it's still it's a really hard mark to hit. We've seen a lot of players try it, and a lot of really talented players try it. And maybe Richardson can be the one, but you just got to respect that maybe, and the fact that Hurts is fair, and Mahomes, and not that he does it the same way, and Allen are just that rare kind of bird.
And Richardson is not doing through the air, regardless of what he's done on the ground. He's not doing through the air what Lamar Jackson, Hurts,
or Lamar Jackson,
Allen. He's not.
And outside of the touchdowns, I would say his completion percentage, while low ADOT and not at volume yet, I wasn't disappointed by what I saw. But we've seen so little of him in college, and then so few attempts in the NFL. It's not negative, but it's hard to sample out. And therefore he can be a league average passer. That's all he needs to be honest. League average passer, and the upside would be there for you. Well, the Lamar Jackson upside would be there for you. And Lamar Jackson is an above average passer in terms of completion rate.
Yes.
Yeah, just hit league average over a significant sample of games, and I'd be like, oh, there you go. I don't have that maybe so much anymore in the equation. But when I'm not quite there. But you're right to see that that's in his range of outcomes. That's solid. It's that you don't value him all the way up there at the top. I don't think without at least expecting the league to adjust it for you. You can be shooting for that upside, but you don't want to pay full quota for it because, again, it's just Dynasty. The way to get more points is to pay less for them than you should have every time, and hopefully add them up at the end and find a winning season or two.
Betting on a single number on the roulette wheel has more upside, but it doesn't make it a better bet.
Yeah. That's not a bad bet for you.
Sorry.
Rather than
I'm still in Vegas here, Peter.
Yeah, look at you go, man. James Tucker, start 8 12-team Superflex. Trade my Daniel Jones for Kenneth Walker. He has Herbert Murray, Heineke, and Jalen Hall. Okay, so not much behind Herbert and Murray. Daniel Jones for Kenneth Walker. If you're on a winning team, I say sure.
I probably would.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair value. You're not going to trade Daniel Jones easily for a first on a building team, but this is getting a first value, first plus. For Daniel Jones, and that's pretty decent. If it helps out your team this year, yeah, I like it. I think that's good for both of you. You know what I mean? I like that trade. Genji, what about if I want to sell my Anthony Richardson for Pickens and a 24 first and second? It's a little less cool. It's less, obviously. It's not too far off, but I would hold out for that second first.
Yeah.
Or another ad, you know, if we can upgrade Pickens to someone. There's various ways of getting to that value line, but I think that second first value is necessary. A good buy, or am I looking for someone else? I think you need to up Pickens. I don't mind getting in on Pickens right now, but the Richardson value needs to come up. So what's Addison look like? Do they have Addison? Who else do they have in the team that can just up that a little bit? I don't think it's too far off, but yeah. Didn't really like him entering this year, but I'll take the L. Yeah, and it's good to recognize that as well. I got a lot of L. Like, L's are the best thing. Noticing what you got wrong so that you can adjust, move forward, and hopefully get not that exact L again in the future. Again, I got some work to do on Puka. And it's not necessarily, again, as I've talked about, my rookie profile, I think, is accurate. I want that process to stay the same. Puka's not going to change it. That per game small thing, like, I'm not going to go in on that. But I do think I meme on my ranks here and there, and I've been trying to weed it out in the first round a lot. But deeper rounds, like I was looking at the ADP in my rookie draft, I took Josh Weil over Puka Nacua in the 5th round of a league I care about. The only reason I do that is because I was completely fading. Again, I'm in or I'm out, especially as we get deep. I'm more interested in tight ends and running backs, but I should have respected that there were more people that do as much, if not more work than I do from tape and everything else that did see that in his range of outcomes. And down that deep, I shouldn't have been thinking my ranks. I should have considered the upside of this one player, if he does anything, will be more valuable to someone in my league. And I do think there's an L I should take there. Not the rookie process thing. I just can't catch a Puka, but I do think I can draft better, despite there being a solid reason that I went tight end instead of wide receiver in round 5. I think that particular choice was Mimi. You know, I was just like, I'm going to leave Puka on the board. And the guy, it's just, sorry, I didn't mean to go on about that, but recognizing where your L's are and the cause of them, and which are actually losses and which are things that you probably could have got right, it's key. Honestly, it's the only way of getting better as far as I can tell. So good idea, Genji. Good choice. Jazz Shress, CMC and Kamara have identical career stats. Really? I could see that, I guess. Kamara's got to be nowhere close on the rushing aspect of it, though, surely. No, we're looking just pure points per game. Anyway, and they were drafted the same year. Kamara was Kamara could easily be considered in that conversation. I think CMC's been a little more consistent, providing a little more value of a replacement. I could check that out again. But Kamara's actually, you're right, probably not that far off. I forget how unexpected Kamara was in his rookie season, because we're just so used to him being exactly what he is, which is great. His rookie profile was a bit of a surprise for a lot, because we hadn't seen that many come in and dominate specifically to developing a receiving role as a running back, having done that in college with relatively, I forgot that. His value is way off in his rookie draft. So, you might be pretty close to how much extra value he's added, Yeah, I don't think Carter's actually devalued. Well, hopefully not, but yeah. I'd rather have Pitts over the picks. Yeah, that's what I kind of meant on that trade. Like, I'm not so obsessed with the trade that I desperately want to hang on to. Even if I was just a trade partner, I'd be like, it's fine. I agree with Zach. That's normally a good policy. You get 60 seconds. Go. Or there. Got it. What is harder to commish? Dynasty or redraft? I don't know. I don't do a lot of commissioning. You can tell I'm not the person anyone looks at and goes, let's give that guy more responsibility. Like that's
honestly, I think it's redraft unless you have like a long standing redraft with like people that you know, because it's so easy for people to get disenchanted with a season, because once you're out, you're out. And so then you have the is it collusion? Are they trading players that they shouldn't be trading? I've been in leagues where guys get pissed and just dropped everybody on their roster, which so the competitive balance, I think it's so much harder to maintain now in terms of like the day-to-day stuff. It's obviously Dynasty. Like there's so much more for rules.
The season is literally never ending. I mean, there are down periods and up periods in every league, and some are bigger and longer, but
it's different. I would rather commission a Dynasty league than I would a redraft league. Again, because like the leagues that I'm in, either Russ's leagues or Bosch's leagues or Kyle Lebrecht's leagues, have a very specific set of bylaws. And so once you do that, a lot of your work is kind of done, because you can just be like, go read the bylaws. I know Bosch does that a lot. Go read the bylaws.
He tries to do that a lot, and I just keep asking. I'm like, I'm not doing that, John. So unless I'm in your league, I would say that's the answer. No, it's not Dynasty or redraft. It's what's the group. Unfortunately, I hate to be so meta about it, but that's the answer. It's how used to and good at are the group of players in your league at working together. Because essentially, leagues have to work together. One, to make a decision like, am I going to accept a reversal of this trade? And am I going to complain about this rule? Am I going to drop all my players in a fit of anger? So the tightness of the group is how easy or hard it is to commish.
But
honestly,
that's also
probably, I would be guessing. And that can, a redraft league could be a tight group of friends that have done it for 10 years. And it all works smoothly. And a Dynasty league can be 12 strangers that only really talk when they're sending trade offers to each other. And that's got to be harder. Just because that lack of familiarity between players that is going to cause more randomness, more fits of I'm dropping my players or doing something weird, or I'm going to collude. I think that comes around with distance between the people actually trying to play together.
But that's also why the most important thing for me when I'm joining the league is who's in the league.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, it's who's in the league and then who's the commish. Is it our house? Is it John Bosch? I mean, I give John Bosch a hard time when I can because it's fun, but like you won't find a better commissioner.
Both he and Russ are
he is impressive enough as a commissioner that I'd let him organize anything if I had the option. I'd be like, I need to organize me skydiving. Could you do that? Because I would feel safer with John Bosch organizing that than almost anyone else. He is spot on.
Yeah.
Don't tell him I said that. I want to give him more hard times, but he's excellent. And I haven't played in a Scottfish league, but I'm sure it's excellent. I know he does a lot of commissioning. I haven't played in a Ryan McDowell league, but I'm sure he's excellent. Some people are just better at it, as far as I can tell, and it's not me. Genji, I have Laporta in the same league. I have Kyler and Anthony Richardson. So I move Laporta for Pitts. I keep Laporta.
Yeah.
Yeah, value game is fun till it burns you, and that seems like a good way to get burnt. When you have a boat, kind of a philosophy. Pittsburgh isn't too pleased. It could be about the trade. If he's going to add like a lot, I guess. Like what? Okay. So the question is, what would you need to add to Pitts to give away Laporta? Or what would you need added to Pitts to get Laporta? Zach? It's at least a first. And I'm not sure I'm overly tempted unless I'm building.
Yeah, but I don't know that as a Pitts owner you're gonna, because you've got the sunk cost fallacy in the Pitts, because you spent a top 3 pick to get Pitts 2 years
whether
ago.
You're gonna get it or not, different question.
Yeah.
But to do it, I'd need at least what I assume is a mid first as well. Like I'm not trading it for a late first.
Yep.
All right, keep Laporta. Like Laporta is what I hope Pitts will be. So I'm going to need something that adds to that. You know, hope Pitts could be again. There you go. Yes, he says he wants Laporta. What should he have to add? Well, yeah. I guess the question. There you go. I don't need a lead first. Should I just hold Laporta? Honestly, yeah. I'm not, because like Zach said, most people aren't going to want to do that. I don't want to put his back up. I'm probably just going to say, yeah, I'm probably just keeping Laporta. Sorry. Yeah, I'd just probably keep Laporta. But if forced, my answer is a mid first. Under no obligation to do it, by the way, people looking at my teams. Tim Shady, who's your top 3 dynasty running backs? That's a really good question right now. An important one, and one that will be ranked and re-ranked in this offseason on every podcast, but I think it's pretty clear right now. Has the order changed?
I don't think so. Do you? I mean, it's going to be
so since because we went over this in the offseason. Go.
No, like to me, it's got to be basically the same thing. It's got to be Bijan, Brees, and then McCaffrey, whatever order you want them in. But I think it's probably Bijan, Brees, McCaffrey.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to keep McCaffrey in there because that's, I guess, one of the questions. But I think it would for me. I'm actually going to check. So it should know my ranks. But sometimes when you're ranking, you get a little wild. So I'll check. But I'm pretty sure it's Bijan, Christian McCaffrey, and then Brees Hall.
Yep.
And if not, I'll probably change it to that because it should be. Oh, shit, that's the wrong sheet. I don't want to go to the website. Come on, just give me the sheet. Give me the sheety sheet. ADP history, draft track. I guess it'll be in there. I have too many sheets, Zach. Never thought I'd say that.
Is there really such a thing?
Apparently. No, it is. It's Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Brees Hall. 4 Saquon Barkley. Then I have Jonathan Taylor. We're getting into a tier here. Gibbs and ETN. You could argue they should be over Taylor. Yeah.
Interesting, though, and that was the question Jazz had, was the fact that Kamara's not anywhere near.
Oh, it's a really good point. Yeah.
Those players and has been pretty similar, has been a runaway running back one in a year. I think Jazz, it's recency bias with Kamara's off field last year and the suspension is really what it is. And so
the suspension is what started me lowering him because I don't mess with that kind of stuff.
So Kamara ends up being a pretty considerable buy.
Yeah. It is a very good point. What changed my order? Honestly, I think it's pretty consistent, even from the offseason. I think we got this one right mostly. I tell you what has changed, ETN. I was a little lower on consensus coming into the season, and I think I've highlighted the part of the process that went wrong on me on that. Not to get into it, it's probably a subject, and I've already ranted too many times this episode, but he has significantly moved up my ranks because of a mistake, an L I think I have taken this season. Like, I think I should have had that in his range of outcomes. I just missed it. I like Tank Bigsby's profiles, essentially the too long didn't read version, and I didn't account for that maybe that we were talking about with Richardson. Or that part of, anyway, again, I said I was going to get into it, but that's one of the things that changed. It was literally his performance. When it comes to running backs, it's kind of about on-field volume for me. And this year, in terms of a proposition and then typical value arcs. Tyson Lucia, as a competing team, would you be willing to overpay for point-scoring players on a team whose 24 first you have? That's a good question. And a good way to think in Dynasty. I have your first. Okay, what should I do with this? Got that. Currently top 4, but could go higher. And wonder your thoughts. So if you trade for their points, their pick's going to get worse.
Yeah.
That's an awesome situation to be in. And would you overpay for them in order to cause that? On a competing team, overpay is always too much. That's kind of the definition. I am willing to do it if it's hand waveable and it really helps my team going in the direction. Like I've talked about it with a few trades. If it's good enough, close enough, and I'm moving, because I consider the movement to have value in itself in the right direction, for my roster, I will hand wave. I'm not going to quibble over trade value when it really comes to it, because sometimes you got to get one right. That's the other part of that. Sometimes you just have to get something right that, quote unquote, you shouldn't. You have to see an ETN coming, which I didn't, or a Puka coming, which I didn't. You have to hit some of those shots better than most people. That's how you win really tough leagues, right? And what it comes down to, winning on the margins a little bit at a time is the idea. I try and play that way, but occasionally you've just got to hit a million, you know? And so, yeah, sometimes I'll wave value away to get a win, or what I think is going to be a win, and assess why I went wrong if it did. And in this particular situation, you've got extra motivation, and I would value that in a trade. Like, it's going to help my roster by taking more points off your team. So I would, quote unquote, overpay a little bit to try and get that done. Yeah, I think that's a fair process to go through.
Yeah, and again, it's especially if you're trading for points that you're going to start. Like, if you're making your team better and making that pick better, absolutely.
It's a solid, right?
Hey, Joe.
No! How you doing? Good to see you again, by the way. Jazz Fresh, stay away from pits. I won't go near him, I promise. The Pickens owner has 224 firsts, and his QBs are Russ and Pickett. No other team has 2 firsts. That's a good bit of league research to know right there. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it. But yeah, I think that trade you mentioned earlier is solid. How far off are Puka and Lamb? I prefer Lamb, obviously, because I'm really having a hard time with the Puka thing, and I just have less confidence in the profile, but there's relatively little argument to make that he should be in that conversation. Like, he should be in that tier, as far as I can tell. He's probably not going to rise up that far because Dynasty's Dynasty and his ADP was low enough that my value model puts him slightly outside of that tier range. But I think if he just has to keep doing pretty good, like he's been doing, and he'll get there. The value should be pretty even, but I prefer Lamb. Have an offer: 12-team PPR Superflex start 10. Give Puka Javonte, which I hate giving Javonte right now, 24-3. And Juwan Johnson, who does not matter in this trade. Get Lamb and Henderson. Okay, so I see where the question... The question isn't Puka to Lamb here. It's Javonte to Henderson. And I think I prefer Javonte pretty significantly. Yeah. So I think that's about even. Yeah, about even. Puka is life. Again, sometimes 24 hours, you just got to hit 100, and you did, or 1 million, or whatever I said. Zach, where do you go on that? To me, it kind of nulls out. And so I lean on, I prefer Lamb.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. Javonte is, like you said, head and shoulders over Henderson for me. Mm-hmm. Lamb is a bump over Puka, kind of that next tier. Like Russ and I talked about this before you came on, but I see Puka in that kind of tier of wide receivers right now that is down, like the Olave, Waddle, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, like that tier of wide receivers. Maybe would go as high as, like, I mean, I guess in the Garrett Will, like that tier, kind of sub Jefferson and Chase, a little bit sub CeeDee Lamb and St. Brown. Yeah.
Waddle.
So
yeah. Yeah, I think I prefer the Lamb side open 24 hours, but I think if the value is here upping Lamb and you really like Puka, clearly, what's the value of it to you? You're downgrading your running back.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't agree with Zach. I want Lamb over Puka personally.
I do,
but I think more teams that's what I mean. Like, I'm saying I agree with that part. But I think more teams in your league would be more interested in Puka than one of those other wide receivers. So what does the Waddle owner think? What does the A.J. Brown owner think? What does the Amon-Ra St. Brown owner think? I want those guys over Puka as well. And if they're willing to give me those guys without having to downgrade Javonte to Henderson, I prefer those trades. So this is fine to go get Lamb, but I would go check out those other teams because those other players in that tier, and you really like Puka, so you really have no motivation to do this specific one. If you can get a better trade on one of those guys that you actually like as well, and you can get an upside, an actual plus instead of just changing your wide receiver, I try and go and do one of those trades first. As it is, the trade's fine, and I prefer Lamb, and so sure. But I think you could probably get better. That's the whole idea that I'm trying to value Puka where he quote unquote should be. Instead, I think someone else in your league should value him a little bit better than this. Not much, but a little bit. If not, sure, get Lamb. Jazz Fresh. I will send you a picture of the stats. No, I don't disagree with you. Tell me the stats. I could also look them up. It's more about how you were comparing them. Was it just points per game over a certain period? Or,
no. She's got a whole bunch.
I know. Obviously, Carr dumping the ball has helped boost his numbers lately. Oh, you mean specifically this season, maybe? Anyway, I don't disagree that Kamara should easily be considered in there, having added a lot of value relative to CMC, like in that tier. Yeah, sure. Josh Downs is a top 30 Dynasty wide receiver, by the way. He certainly should be. DLF ADP lags behind for obvious reasons. It goes monthly. But I was shocked because it has updated once. And Josh Downs has been doing better than I brought it up this week. I assume that's what this is about. Has been doing better than Tank Dell all season. But Tank Dell must have got more mention because he jumped up 60 picks and he was 30 picks above Josh Downs. I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. I want to like both. But Downs should be slightly higher than that. But yeah, he's probably in actuality valued much different than that ADP suggests. It's just that last month, apparently, we weren't adjusting accurately. I'll post CMC 100 touches versus Kamara. Yep. That sounds about right. Kamara has more games played and is older. I don't think that's what's doing it at this point. CMC's just got the hype. And yeah, games played, consistency, a lack of off-field concerns, relatively. Scrimmage yards. Looks pretty close. There you go. I'm really surprised on the rushing yards because he's a lot less involved in the rushing game. I would have thought, just narratively. I'm not surprised on the receptions at all. The receiving workload has always been surprisingly similar. Brees Prejean, JT. You have JT above CMC. That's what we're disagreeing with here. Outside of that, we're on the same page. Genji's got JT in the top 3.
Yeah, no, seems, yeah.
Age don't scare me, no. Unless it's Kamara, apparently. That's a year. Let's not quibble. And again, it's age, not touches as well at running back as well. So the age does matter a little bit in terms of drop off. And the value arc is almost locked in stone. Kamara's never going to be valued like CMC for the rest of their careers. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It just means he's perpetual value in that way. Okay. Come on, guys. I'm not going to read out. I agree. Nearly a year in running back years, Doug years. No. Moving on. 10 teams start to QB 4 PPR. Justin Herbert and Dotson or Lawrence and Puka? Herbert. It's 2 QB. I just leave the better quarterback.
Yeah.
Puka shouldn't. It's a significant upgrade over Dotson, obviously, but Herbert's like in that tier for me. Genji, the factors on offense was produced with subpar running backs. I feel I fully expect those numbers. Okay, they're having the same debate. Funnily enough, Kamara is okay. Traded Edwards, Michael Thomas, Kelly, and a 4th for a late first. Thoughts? Yeah, you saw the package. Gus Edwards and Thomas are going to continue to do what they're doing. That's pretty good for a competitive team, and a 1st is good for a building team. So this sounds about right. Package of good points for a 1st. I don't think it's a robbery. I think that's fair if they're going in different directions. I'm still competing, but figured it's still worth it. Yeah, most teams are in that 70%. And this trade, yeah, if I'm not top 3, look, I'm not scared about trading for value over points.
As long as you can,
instead of points value. Yeah.
As long as you can weather losing Gus Edwards, you know.
It's going to be rough. Gus a bus. Come on, man. Respect. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I didn't mean to hand wave a lot of those, but I know I've only been here for a short time and Zach's been here for a long time. I don't want to tire him out like I need him next week. You know what I mean? So
I know what you mean.
Appreciate all of you. I think the Kamara CMC conversation is an interesting one. You've noticed an inefficiency in the running back market.
The arbitrage CMC is Kamara. It's fun.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, Pete.
Yes,
Look
sir.
over there.
Bye, everyone.